Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячий хотар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто води всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів. Робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить. Хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар? Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ. Тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Наші
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 735 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And we've got some big news breaking out today. Russia is getting even more wild, and it's good to see you all once again.
And Russia do be wildin', and on top of that, the Ukrainians have stopped the Russian army dead west of Avdiivka. They have hit the village chain, and they have slammed the doors shut for a further advance. It is really good news today. Well, good news in one way, not so good news in the other way with Moldova. But on the front lines of Ukraine, the news is amazing today, and the Ukrainians are doing an amazing job.
You're telling me that Ukraine's holding them back? Is that what you're telling me?
Ukraine is holding them back beyond what some disguised pro-Ukrainians would say that are really pro-Russian chills, saying that the Ukrainians have lost it all and they're losing everywhere today. The Ukrainians are holding their ground in every part of the front lines, and not only that, have finally stopped the Russian advance at Avdiivka, at the village chain around Berdichi, Orlivka, Tenenke, and Semenivka. It is huge news today, absolutely incredible news, because we've been watching the Ukrainians slowly fall back to this village chain over several days, and have been somewhat concerned when this fall back will eventually stop, and it stopped today. They took them out behind the shed and put them down on video. We got it all right here on this channel tonight. All the way from the far reaches of Stepove and all the way down to Severne, which is on the very southern end of that defensive line. It has been an unbelievable day. And you know what? Instead of hyping this up a lot, I'm actually going to get y'all directly into this battle analysis here and tell y'all exactly what has been happening over the past 24 hours here at Avdiivka. So let me make sure to move us down into the direction of Avdiivka right here, and let me refresh the map, and I'll show y'all what's going on. So, over the past 24 hours, Russian forces have been advancing into Tenenke, Orlivka, Semenivka, and Berdichi. Over those past 24 hours, there currently is some ongoing fighting at Orlivka. From what we understand, the Ukrainian forces do in fact hold the village at the moment, and we are believing that this is the second major defensive line that the Ukrainians have been working on building during the Battle of Avdiivka. We have seen that as Russian forces have begun to hit this village chain, they are getting absolutely obliterated by Ukrainian return fire, from ATGMs, from simple small arms fire, and everything else in between, all the way from the very northern end of this defensive perimeter, and all the way down south towards Tenenke itself. I'm going to be taking you all from Stepove south, moving our way across the entirety of the front line, because it is best to kind of look at these clips as a front-wide action, more so than individual village actions by different groups. But starting off in the very northern area, we got to see one of the 47th Brigade's M2 Bradleys attacking Russian positions at close range. Sadly, I'm going to have to mute the audio, but this is in the evening hours of just the past 24 hours, and it was something to see. We can see at the very beginning of the video, a Russian vehicle is on fire not that far away, and the Bradley is beginning to reverse and continues to fire its 25mm Bushmaster at Russian forces in the distance. We can see it moving past the burning vehicle and trying to move through the smoke cloud so that way the gunner can get a better view of the targets ahead. And we can now see them moving along the tree lines. These tree lines are to the west of Stepove. And I'll actually be able to show you all these right here, because operational security is not that much of an issue, because we do know that Russian forces are in this area, and this Bradley is engaging at point-blank range. But the tree line that we're looking at is about approximately right here, or it's this one right here. It's one of these two tree lines from what we understand, but the Bradley was moving straight down the tree line and just hammering the Russian forces that were just several feet away from the Bradley here in this clip. And we can see it continuing to fire into that tree line and hitting a small ammunition cache that the Russians had set up. And we can see
tell you, this isn't exactly the best looking environment. Like, it looks like it's been, pretty badly war torn, but this doesn't look to me like the Ukrainians are losing. It looks like to me like they're fighting pretty hard still.
The Ukrainians are fighting tooth and nail across the entirety of the front lines right now to defend their nation and to defend their villages that are just a few miles behind Avdiivka. They are doing an incredible job, and of course, with amazing support from the West in the form of this M2 Bradley, it is amazing to know that they're still doing such a great job. But this isn't the only clip that came out of that northern area today. We got an additional clip showing that the 47th Brigade was also attacking and destroying Russians with their FPV drones. Or more so, watching them get blown up with mines, but from a drone. But here's the clip. when you see the Russians advancing forward, we can already see that just over the past 24 hours, as they've moved out of Stepove, because this is the village of Stepove right here, they've already sustained some pretty high losses. And if we look out there, this is something that I think is hilarious. Do you see that little metallic glint right there, Matthew, where the mouse cursor's at?
Yes.
That is the T9DM that got ganked by the Bradleys a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, geez, man. It's sitting right there to, like, rub it in their face, too. They can't even move around without seeing it.
Yeah, they can't. It's literally like a landmark at this point in the middle of Stepove is the T90M that got absolutely mobbed about a couple of weeks ago and just wiped out. But also, I like
And that's their beaut. That's the big beaut of Russia is the T90, the indestructible and, just wonderful tank. That's it right there.
Yeah, the rapidly advanced Russian super tank, the T90M, indestructible by every means.
Amazing. I'll tell you what. Now it's a piece of scrap.
Now, it really is just a piece of scrap. It really is just a landmark at this point for Russian forces that are attempting to advance and getting splattered on the very western side of the village of Stepove. But we can see here, both of these Russian vehicles got hit and exploded at the exact same time. Very impressive work right there. We see them showing us that multiple times. And we can now see the drone flying right over, but the video clip sadly ended and we weren't really able to get a great assessment of how much damage was actually caused to both of those armored personnel carriers. But nevertheless, it is great to see that the 47th Brigade is continuing on their incredible battle actions in the northern flank of the front line near Stepove and are once again showing what excellence looks like. The 47th Brigade is one of the newest in the Ukrainian armed forces. Just raised at the very beginning of last year in the spring of 2023, they were involved in the unfortunate southern offensive that occurred last year in the late summer of 2023, and then were moved after that offensive ended into the northern flank of the city of Avdiivka and have remained there ever since. They use almost nothing but advanced Western equipment. Almost all of their tanks and armored personnel carriers are Leopard 2A6s for their main battle tanks, as well as M2 Bradleys provided by the United States that make up their armored personnel carrier force. We also have heard supposed rumors that they may also now have the M1A1 Abrams attached to their roster, but we have not been able to get any confirmation of that at the moment. There are M1A1 Abrams in the area that are active around Avdiivka, but we don't have enough information to be able to say what unit those Abrams are attached to. But nevertheless, they are doing amazing work in that northern flank. Meanwhile, more towards the center of this defensive line at Orliivka, Russian forces were once again attempting to advance into the town today, but ended up taking fairly high losses. This video clip shows one of those BMPs that was advancing into Orliivka, getting hit, and not doing well if the video clip loads. And hopefully it loads. How's the family doing? How's the family doing? How's everyone doing?
Pretty good. Call your family. Call your family.
Call your family. Call your family. But how are y'all doing in the live chat while we're waiting for this to load? Are y'all doing well tonight? I hope y'all are. And I don't know if this video clip is actually going to load. This is interesting.
Man, it's like we're getting what, like 5 megabytes a second or something? What is this?
Yeah, this is just abysmal right here. But let me try this again. If not, okay. All right, we're waiting for it to load. It's not loading. This is very odd. And also, welcome into Walter Lakota. But
hey, welcome to the bosun.
Hey, welcome to the bosun. But beyond that, for some reason, this clip is not loading. So we're going to circle back to that one here in a second. But moving on from kind of describing what happens in that clip, what was happening is that a Russian BMP was advancing directly onto Orliivka. It ended up running pretty much headlong into a Ukrainian tank. It ended up suffering a hit and getting knocked out. And from what we understand, the crew was also immediately knocked out with the vehicle as well. Moving on down into the direction of the very southern end of this defensive line near Tenenke, we did get to see some Russian forces getting hit by none other than the famous 3rd Azov. The gang is all here. I'm not lying. This defensive line is made up of some of the most amazing units that have been involved in the fighting in Ukraine for months and months on end. But here's this clip showing one of the 3rd Brigade's FPV drones slamming dead into the back of the turret of a BMP. In this next clip, we can see them going for a little no-knock warrant. That's trying to get in there and see what's going on. We can also see this drone trying to go for a Russian that's hiding under a lamppost. Oh my lord, it's a Chinese ATV. We all know how this ends.
Oh no. It's going to fall apart. The bolts and nuts are going to fall off of it.
And now they're going for another BMP. All of this is around Tenenke, by the way. We can see one of the BMPs has been hit and is already smoking. Sadly, we didn't get to see the direct hit in any drone footage, but we know that it was knocked out by the Ukrainians. And that thing took a bad beating right there. It looked like it got detracted at some point, and that was it for that APC pretty much. And we can now see these drones operating around the Avdiivka coke plant, and it looks like this one's going for that little air duct or entrance to the basement of the coke plant down there. I have heard it called a catacombs, but a catacombs is specifically a kind of underground earthworks meant to house corpses, and the Avdiivka coke plant does not have a catacombs. Just wanting to let y'all know that it's a pretty much a network of basements below most of the major buildings, but do not be mistaken, they are not catacombs. There are no dead bodies that were down there prior to the battle. But we can see the drone trying to make its way in. We didn't really get to tell if it did. But in this next clip, we can see this Russian trying to take a little bit of a jog, and it appears that the Ukrainians came down and got him. But with that, that's the end of that clip. And once again, showing some pretty impressive work by the 3rd Brigade. What's really odd about this defensive line is that you would imagine, based off of the Battle of Avdiivka, that a clip showing an attack on the Avdiivka coke plant would be to the very, very southern end, well, the northern end of this defensive line. But oddly enough, it's more so towards the northern side, as Orlivka and Tenenke are pretty much directly in line with the Avdiivka coke plant. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see the Ukrainians calling in some airburst rounds onto Russians that were moving through the fields a little too lackadaisically outside of Orlivka and ended up getting it. So here's the clip. We're going to have to mute the Chad music, but when you see the Russians advancing, and the airburst gets them.
Oh.
Dead on the nail.
They call that the salt and pepper special. No extra seasoning.
Man, all salt, no pepper.
Oh, and they call that the targeted salt.
You know something, Matt?
Extra pepper.
Ukrainian artillery is all pepper, no salt. The Russian infantry is all salt, no pepper. Because it's
They're
terrible.
full of salt. They're definitely salty.
Oh, they're salty. Because if Russian artillery was that good, maybe they'd be able to even have a chance at fighting well. But with the artillery they have, it mostly will end up being friendly fire, or they'll shoot down their own command plane, one or the other. But moving on from that, and out of that clip and on into one of our last ones near the area of Tenenke, we did get to see some Russian armored personnel carriers exploding on some mines as they tried to advance towards the village of Tenenke. Here's the clip. We're going to be muting that, but we can see the APCs advancing through the fields, throwing up a lot of smoke. We can see that, of course, the entire area is peppered with artillery. Wait a minute. That's a duplicate. Mind the hell. I don't know what it is sometimes, y'all, but I'll see a clip before the stream, 2 of the same ones. I'll be like, yeah, that's different. I think it's the lighting that's sometimes different in the clips that makes me think that. But beyond that, that is actually a duplicate, so we're going to be removing that one because that actually was geolocated earlier to the area around Stepove, where the T-90M was. But beyond that, this is an area that has been heavily contended, heavily fought over, and not only that, is showing a lot of promise. The Ukrainians are once again starting to refound themselves on this defensive line. They do have some natural barriers to work with, too. They have a decent amount of reservoirs in this area around Semenivka, Berdichi, and Orlivka that will make this a very good defensive position, and hopefully we will see that this continues to remain an amazing defensive position, and the Ukrainians are able to stop and hold the Russians right where they are. It looks like they're already starting to do that as of the clips we're seeing today, and I have a feeling that they're probably going to be very much so continuing on this kind of defense. We have heard some statements today from some people who are supposedly pro-Ukrainian, saying that everything is lost for the Ukrainians, they just can't do it anymore, they suck pretty much, and it's over for them, the Russians are just steamrolling them. And comments like
That's
that...
a load of bollocks.
Comments like that are absolutely ridiculous and a flat-out lie, trying to gain clicks and views for fear-mongering, pretty much. Much like many of the mainstream news networks like Fox News and CNN do. It's literally no better. We've been hearing about that today, and me, having watched the entire frontline situation unfold, the Ukrainians are doing absolutely fine. There's no area of the front line today where the Ukrainians are just getting slammed or getting pushed back at any large degree, or even at all in most areas of the front line. I've been hearing about that today, and in certain statements that have come out, and those kinds of statements are absolutely ridiculous, absolutely insane to hear, and puts absolutely no faith at all into the Ukrainian armed forces, which have been fighting heroically for over 2 years at this point to continue on their fight to keep free, To say something like that is something that will make people jump ship and leave supporting the cause and supporting Ukraine, because they'll think there's absolutely nothing left. And that's something sad, it's something ridiculous, and it's something so short-sighted and selfish to say something like that with no true founding in fact, that people like those that are running YouTube channels like that and saying stuff like that shouldn't be running a YouTube channel anymore covering this war. They should move on to being a Russian shill instead. But moving on from that, and out of the Avdiivka area, it's time for us to move on into the next major bit of news that we have been getting today. And this is something that a lot of people have started to seriously get concerned about, and with good cause. Some people have been mentioning that apparently there's a little bit of an issue going on inside of Moldova that is going to lead to the Russians most likely attempting to start a war inside of Moldova, or actually annex Transnistria and create a Russian state or a Russian territory out of it. This is something that has been on everyone's minds for over 2 years at this point, since the war in Ukraine began, because Transnistria is a very territory, best way to say it. I do not recognize the independence of Transnistria, but for the purposes of Moldova, they kind of do. And I'll try and explain the best I can about this little semi-official republic. But let me go over here and let me get this thing for y'all. So this is the Pridnestrovian Moldovan Republic. We call it Transnistria. That's their flag that they still have to this day. It's an unofficial, unrecognized state. Nobody except for Abkhazia and South Ossetia recognizes this illegitimate country. Not even the Russians.
I didn't know they used a sickle and a hammer on their flag, though. I didn't notice that until just now.
Really?
Yeah, that's something I just realized after I covered it today. I never looked at their flag the whole time.
So to give a little bit of background as to why Transnistria exists, because it's very important to understand the kind of historical ebb and flow of the past 40 years to really get an idea of why any of this is happening. Back when the Soviet Union existed, Moldova was actually a little bit better off than it normally had been, which is very opposite from most other nations throughout the course of being in the Soviet Union or the Warsaw Pact. Usually a lot of them were worse off in the Warsaw Pact or the Soviet Union than they were beforehand. But Moldova was one of the few that actually ended up faring pretty well throughout the times of the Soviet Union. And in the process of doing that, and I'm trying to find y'all a really good map of what Transnistria looks like. This is it, the area that's highlighted in yellow. And a lot of y'all, when looking at the map, would say that doesn't even exist when I'm looking at this on Google Maps. Well, that's because nobody officially recognizes this country except for two fake countries inside of Georgia that Russia created back in 2008 and 2009. But beyond that, this little country exists because when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991 and Moldova became an independent country, for most of those that left, well, pretty much for everyone that left the Soviet Union, including Ukraine and including the Russian Federation, things went to hell in a handbasket so fast it made everyone's head spin. And a lot of people were actually really scared that the Soviet Union was, in fact, way better than what they had just entered. And a lot of people were very sentimental about Soviet times, because the Soviet times compared to the times of the early 90s for a lot of these post-Soviet and former Warsaw Pact countries was far better than what they were in at the moment. And the people of Transnistria were people that believed in that so much that they actually went to war with the Moldovan government over several years. And over the process of that, Moldova ended up running into pretty much what was almost a terroristic guerrilla war that was being conducted inside of their country by the Transnistrians. The Transnistrians finally ended up having a peace brokered by the Russians, which was, funnily enough, you know, while you think the Russians are always the bad guys, and they still are in this story, the Russians didn't really want Transnistria to exist either, but Moldova was practically begging them at this point to try and do something, because no one else was stepping in and doing anything at that point, that the Russians said, okay, we'll make a peace, and Transnistria will exist, and we'll just put some armed forces there, like 1,000 or 2,000 guys, less than a brigade. And so that's the way it existed for years. But as Putin came into power and Russia's ambitions changed from trying to possibly be a Western-aligned country like they were looking at in the early 90s, in the mid-90s, and then the late 90s, and then from 2000 onwards, when Putin became pretty much the leader of Russia, Russia started to change from having Western ambitions more so into having Russian imperial ambitions like we see today. And now, as Russia invaded Ukraine in this recent war, Russia has been eyeing Transnistria as a possible way to try and bring Moldova back under Russian control and have some kind of a good excuse to do it. as far as really anyone's concerned, Transnistria is Moldova's version of the Donetsk People's Republic and Luhansk People's Republic that was formed by separatists in Ukraine in 2014 and massively backed by the Russian government. According to what we've heard today, the Transnistrians called a Congress, which is something they haven't done in pretty much 2 decades, and requested that the Russian government gives them help and annexes them. Now, that sounds very similar to something that we've heard in the past before. We actually heard this very same thing back in the day from the supposed Crimeans of the Crimean Peninsula. Back in 2014, when the entire Donbass conflict kicked off, what happened is that the peninsula of Crimea, or what we could call the Crimean Oblast, because it was called that by both the Ukrainians and the Russians, seceded from Ukraine, technically, although they didn't. It was more so like the Russians forced them to secede from Ukraine. But they seceded from Ukraine, and within 23 hours, the Crimeans supposedly held a referendum, and something like 80-something to 70-something% of all of the people in Crimea voted that they wanted to become a part of the Russian Federation, and then the Russians annexed them at the end of that 23 hours. And that's why, to this day, the Russians claim that since 2014 onwards, Crimea has legally become a part of Russia and is now considered an oblast in the Russian Federation, which is an illegal annexation, but that's something that everyone knows and we don't really have to talk about too much. But beyond that, these people are in a very similar state, and today they've asked the Russians to help them. And the Russians' response was that they might actually end up helping them. We don't know how they would do that. To quickly go over some of the obstacles and problems that would naturally be faced in an attempt to help out the Transnistrians, the Russians would have to fly aircraft into Moldova because there's no land route easily accessible by the Russians into Moldovan. They're bordered by Ukraine on 3 sides, and then the only other side that they're not bordered by Ukraine with, they're bordered by Romania. So, obviously, they're not going to be getting in through Romania because that's a NATO-aligned country, and they're also not going to be getting in through Ukraine either because they're currently at war with Ukraine, and I'm sure that they're not going to let an IL-76 fly through Ukrainian airspace and into Moldova to help out separatists that are Russian. That would make no sense. So right now at the moment, if the Russians really did want to help, there's not really a lot that they could feasibly do to support their own forces inside of Moldova. There are several thousand Russian soldiers that are currently there at the moment, and from what we understand, the Transnistrian militias, along with the Russian armed forces that are in Transnistria, they're actually large enough that they could go toe-to-toe with the Moldovan military for a short time if they're not supported. We do know, however, that Ukraine has pledged to give support to Moldova if the Transnistrian issue was to blow up and take off. So if the Russians give a command to these Transnistrian forces to start a war inside of Moldova on their own and try and occupy the country or something similar, we know that the Moldovan government will most likely be able to hold off long enough until Ukraine is able to send their own reaction force to help crush the Transnistrian uprising. But beyond that, this is a very interesting instance. And we do have a couple of bits of news that we put down on the map for y'all to all look at today outside of my explanation. This is from the Institute of the Study of War, showing the Russian forces that are inside of Transnistria, the borders of Transnistria, and everything else. You know, kind of talked about that already and showed that to y'all on Wikipedia. We also have them talking about their request for help, which I talked about earlier, but if y'all want to get a corroboration for that, this was put out by Jennifer Griffin on Twitter, and this is a retweet of Visegrad24 talking about the Transnistrians requesting Russia's aid. And then finally, the last bit that we have is the statement that Visegrad24 made, saying that the Russians may come in and help alleviate the quote-unquote economic pressure of Moldova. But beyond that, pretty much all the
Transnistria is such a small territory, like right on the edge of Moldova. It's like Moldova is small enough, but then you got Transnistria, which is like a small sliver of land that's not even worth defending or really bothering with. So that tells you what Russia's real motivation is behind trying to like spark an issue with it, because it's not enough land to really even fool with.
And it isn't even something that the Russians ever wanted to deal with for most of their history, post-Soviet times. They didn't even want this thing to exist for at least 12 to 14 years in its original existence. And now, for some reason, they want to act like they care about the Transnistrians and they want to help them, which they're really just Moldovans that are living in an unrecognized country inside of Moldova. It's less than a third of the territory of Moldova as well. It is insignificant in every single measure, and it's something that the Russians should not be helping out with or even mentioning that they're helping out with. But nevertheless, they are, for the specific reason that they're trying to once again realize their imperial ambitions across Eastern Europe, and Moldova is the next easy target to take. Moldova is not a NATO state. It is largely neutral, kind of like you would have considered Ukraine pre-2014. It's kind of going down the middle in between both sides, the Russian sphere and the Western sphere. So the fact that the Russians are trying to create an issue inside of Moldova is making it very clear that they're not wanting to just make Transnistria a real country. They're wanting to try and take over Moldova and probably put in a puppet government or figure out a way to annex Moldova back into the Russian Federation. It's something that is very concerning. Hopefully people keep an eye on this, because this could be another war that is happening literally right on the border of Ukraine. And I don't really know anyone that could help Moldova or would want to help Moldova in that instance, except for Ukraine itself. So maybe the Russians are doing this as a diversionary tactic to try and draw some Ukrainian forces away from being actively engaged with Russian forces in the eastern part of Ukraine. Maybe they're trying to divert some of them into Moldova, because there's really no way that that would succeed once the weight of the Moldovan army, as well as a small part of the Ukrainian armed forces, comes down on the Transnistrians. There's probably no way they'd be able to hold off that long. So maybe it's a diversionary tactic, or maybe they're actually looking at trying to create a Russian-aligned Moldova. Who knows? It's really odd, though. And Matthew, I think a lot of people actually have some very interesting comments about what's happening in Moldova. And I know that you really do, because you made an entire video about that very thing today.
So yes, indeed. And we did ask the audience, what do they think about Russia, or excuse me, about the Moldovan breakaway territory Transnistria, asking Russia for help to separate from Moldova. And it looks like 43% said Russia will respond by annexing. 31% said Russia will destabilize Moldova instead. And 18% said Russia will bluff/not annex it. In my opinion, it sounds like to me this is the same type of rhetoric that was used to justify the invasion of Ukraine and also Crimea as well. Because the Crimean peoples down there were saying, oh, we want Russia's help, like we want to be free. Some of them were saying that. And Russia said, oh, we have a duty to go down there and quote unquote liberate that territory. They also did the same thing with the entirety of Ukraine, which are currently still in that war, obviously. We're covering that every single day. And now they're doing the same strategy with Transnistria. And it sounds like to me they're setting the stage for an annexation, which is quite serious. And it could end up causing a problem with Moldova. I'm not sure if Moldova is going to simply allow that to happen. But like the enforcer said, it could be a way to distract the Ukrainian troops, which seem to be the only ones that are willing to help in that situation, and distract them from the front lines. So enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, I think the Russians would like to annex if they could, but it's impossible to do. I mean, when we really look at that in a realistic light, there's no way that they could actually try and annex Moldova at the moment. They would have to actually win in Ukraine, which is never going to happen, to be able to border Moldova to back up their own forces that are inside of Moldova, pretty much trapped there for 2 years. I don't think they'd ever be able to do that. So while they would want to, and I think that's the honest intention, that's practically impossible. The next thing that I think they're probably going for is maybe destabilizing Moldova, or trying to divert Ukrainian forces away from the Russians in the east. Maybe that's something that they're trying to do. But it's a really bizarre thing, because there's nothing that the Russians could practically do that would succeed in any big or meaningful way that actually help them out or achieve their interests inside of Moldova. So going off of that, I hope that does address that the best I can, because I honestly don't know what the Russians will want to be doing in Moldova. There's nothing that they actually can do there, like realistically thinking about it. But still, with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're now going to be moving on from this little bit of Moldovan news, but nevertheless, make sure y'all to keep a good eye on Moldova, and make sure to keep aware of what's going on down there, because we may have to circle around and start covering this as a full-time news segment along with Ukraine if a conflict does kick off in Moldova. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news and on into our location on, well, actually, really quickly, I believe we have a little bit of international news to cover, and I want to make sure that we get into that, because there were some fairly big, interesting bits of news that came out today, and not only that, some bombshells. I'm going to quickly take y'all to the Czech Republic, because one of our most interesting viewers, I gotta say, as far as what they do in the real world, is actually from the Czech Republic. And that is the foreign minister of the Czech Republic, Jan Lipovsky. He actually follows our Twitter account, and from what we know, he also watches the YouTube channel as well. But still, really, really cool little country. I absolutely love the Czech Republic. Really like Bohemia, or the Kingdom of Bohemia as well. In historical times, very cool country. and it has a very rich history. Also, the Sudetenland is still an industrial powerhouse even in the modern day, which is really cool. But anyways, moving on from that, we did get some big news from the Czechs today that apparently they're going to be helping the Ukrainians to break check the Russians, as they're going to be possibly giving them a brand new Czech SPG that will be paid for by the Dutch. It's a little bit of weird how that's working, but this is it. The Dita 155mm self-propelled gun. It's like a Dana SPG, but they replaced the turret with that of a 155mm gun up to a Western standard, and that's really it. Super cool though.
Man, did they draw the gun to scale though? The thing looks like it's like 2 or 3 times larger than it should be for the truck.
Oh, the gun is drawn to scale. Let me go see if I can get a real look at the Dita 155mm SPG. And let's see here. So it looks like I was able to find a video of this thing, but let me go try and look for a real picture of it. That's not it. Let me go to this. That's not it. Huh. Or is that it? Hang on, let me look at this. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie. The truck is so clean that you would think that this is actually like a fake picture, but from what I can tell, that's actually a real picture of the Dita SPG. So let me show you what I found.
That can't be, man. It looks like something that somebody made in like a rendering or something. That one does too. Like it looks fake.
Okay, but I'm about to show you why it's not, because this is wild. This is just how cool it looks. We scroll down here, the dust coming off of the wheels. It's driving around an old abandoned kind of like military yard, pretty much, with a whole bunch of rotting vehicles. Down here, we can actually see another view of the Dita, and you can see the dirt on the tires, and the dirt looks too good where it's probably not a rendering, because usually military renderings are always like cheap dog water quality. And then down here, it's really interesting because you start to see enough that this thing isn't a rendering, because the shadow's too good on the ground. It's just that clean. It's just that clean looking of an SPG. And then there's the internal cab right there.
That's crazy. Like all these pictures look like AI generated or something. Like I'm still thinking they're fake, but it's possible they're real.
It's real. Let me go get some more information on this thing, because we don't really know a lot about its capabilities, but let me go see what they have up here. You know what? We're not going to accept any cookies, but let me see what we got here.
I'll accept the cookie.
I mean, you can accept the cookie. Like, you can take the cookie, but I'm not taking the cookie. Let's see here. Is this a video of it in operation? Hang on, let me mute that. Let me check. Oh, crap. Yeah. It's real. It's real. It's actually real. Let me take this, because this is from a website that has an entire, like, page about the Dita, but here's the Dita actually moving around, just to show y'all if this thing is real.
Wow, it is real. What about that? Man, that gun really does look like way too large for the truck. Like it's like bigger than a tank turret.
Dude, it is. Like, this thing is huge. But this thing also looks so modern, it looks fake. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it still looks fake right here. And it's just too clean, but still, it is super cool to know that the Czechs have these things. I'm supposing that the reason why they're getting these things is that they're replacing the Dana SPGs with these brand new Ditas. And the Ditas are supposed to be a westernized version of the Dana, considering that it has a standardized 155mm howitzer shell that it fires. But still, this thing is really cool. But let's see it fire, because
It's even got feet.
Man, defeat! But check out the gun setup here. Man, wicked.
Man, it's like a it's like a SPG.
It is. It is an SPG.
I know. It also says EA because EA Sports is in the game.
Man, easy access to ammunition conveyors for 40 rounds. But nevertheless, we're going to end the clip there, because I just wanted to show you all a little bit of the Dana SPG. So that picture, wildly enough, is actually a real picture of the Dita. That's how clean it looks for some reason, but still really cool to know that the Ukrainians are going to be getting 9 of these things, and apparently the Dutch are going to be paying for them, which kind of brings us on to the Dutch. We actually have Dutch viewers that watch this channel every single night. We're always happy to have them here. But one thing that's really interesting to hear is that apparently support for the Dutch to get involved in the war directly in Ukraine is actually somewhat high. According to a poll that was conducted today, over half of the Dutch public want to see their armed forces get sent into Ukraine. A picture of the Dutch armed forces included. And that's a little interesting to me, and it's certainly starting to show that there is a prevailing mindset within Europe that this war largely affects all of them, and they would even be willing to get directly involved themselves. Whether they would is a whole other story, because the answer is they probably never will. Largely due to diplomatic pressure from the larger nations that are a part of NATO, like the United States. But beyond that, it is really interesting to see, and also it's also very interesting to note when you think about it that the Dutch are actually kind of heavily involved, really heavily involved in supporting Ukraine. They are the ones who gave up their Leopard 1A5s to be refitted and then sent to Ukraine. They're also sending some F-16s. They're also sending a large amount of their own 155mm howitzers. They also sent one of the Patriot batteries that is currently in Ukraine in the past. The Dutch have actually done a lot for Ukraine, and there is a huge shout out to be deserved by the Netherlands, and a huge point of national pride that they have been doing so much to help out not only European interests, but Western interests as a whole. And it looks like they're doing incredibly well at that at the moment, and they're continuing to keep up a very high legacy and a very high support for Ukraine, even in this present day. But moving on from that little bit of news, and on down into the Black Sea, we've also been getting some really interesting news from down here. Of course, many of you all know that the Russian Black Sea Fleet has not been doing too well, and the Ukrainians actually put together a little chart today showing how the naval war has gone down over 2 years. This is according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine's Strategic Command, and based off of this, 13 ships have been destroyed, and another 22 have been hit. So going off of this, we know that the Russian Navy is not doing that well, and somehow they're getting beat around by a country that does not have a Navy. And that is something that we've said so many times throughout the war, and it's almost become a cliche to say that the Russians are getting beat by a country without a Navy. But we have to say that each and every time, because it's such an important thing to note. The Ukrainians do not have a Navy. The Russians are fighting against a country that is Navyless for the most part. And somehow they're still losing miserably and also taking a high number of ship losses in the process. It's something that is hard to really even comprehend, how a country can be losing this badly that isn't even really fighting a navy at sea, but they're also trying to work on ways to mitigate their losses. But the way they're trying to mitigate it is already being uncovered by the Ukrainians and satellite information as we speak. Here are some pictures taken by the Airbus defense and space satellites that flew over Novorossiysk, showing that the Russians are making some interesting modifications to their ships. We can see that one of the few Rapucha-class landing ships that survives is in this picture allotment right here, and these pictures were taken on the 27th of February, which means that they were taken yesterday and finally released to the public today. What's interesting to note about these ships is that if you look at the bow and stern, you can see that they are painted solid black. A complete opposite of what the usual Russian Navy sea gray color that's painted along the entirety of the ship. The reason why they're doing this is that they're trying to create a modern-day version of the good old-fashioned razzle-dazzle camouflage. And some people are saying, what is the razzle-dazzle camouflage? And that is a great question. And let me go pull it up. The razzle-dazzle camouflage is a camouflage pattern that was created in the First World War by really every country almost identically. But the reason why they made this a thing is because it was supposed to break up the form of the ship and make it much more difficult to tell which direction the ship was moving or what speed it was traveling at. I'll show y'all a picture here of a merchant ship that has the razzle-dazzle camouflage pattern on it, and that's it right there.
Oh dear, I don't know about that, man. That's different.
It is different. But it was effective. It was very effective at what it did. It made it very difficult for the Germans to actually try and figure out what direction this thing was moving at, where's the bow, where's the stern, and also how far away it was, because this thing breaks up the form of the ship so much, and it's so confusing to look at, that submarine captains, at least back in the First World War for the Germans, really had a tough time putting two and two together. And this camouflage pattern still exists in a limited form, even in the modern day. Like we can see right here, this one is a Royal Navy, I don't know what exact class of ship it is, but we can see that it's still sporting a very modernized version of a razzle-dazzle camouflage, which is...
That looks a little bit more acceptable than the other one. Like, this looks like a, I guess you could say a good-looking design to an extent, but geez, man, that zebra one wasn't cutting it.
But let me see here. Wait a minute, hang on. That's not a razzle-dazzle, that's just garbage. But let me go find a real razzle-dazzle, or at least a manual showing why. So that's what it's supposed to look like through a periscope using razzle-dazzle camouflage. It is so hard to say that. And then this is what the merchant ship would look like without the camouflage.
Interesting. I guess they still got a general like area to fire at though. Like it helps a little bit, but like the purpose is to sort of like obscure the direction it's moving. You said.
Yes, like notice this. Notice that in this picture over here, this illustration, the bow of the ship, which you would assume is along this black line here, is offset to the left side by a good bit. So a U-boat commander would have looked at this and he would have gone, this merchant ship is almost traveling at us dead ahead, pretty much head on. So we're going to fire a torpedo at this thing head on. And if they did that, they would miss the ship entirely. It would actually go a little bit towards the left and completely miss the merchant vessel. But with the merchant vessel unpainted, the U-boat commander is able to approximate the direction of travel incredibly easy and fire off a torpedo accurately. So going off of that, that's why they would create the razzle dazzle, because it would be a little bit more confusing for them to figure out what the ship really is doing. And even if there is a very experienced submarine captain or a commander, and he's able to actually figure out what direction the ship is traveling at, by then he's spent so much time that the window of opportunity to actually destroy the ship has most likely passed, and now he's got to go try and find a new target, because submarines aren't fast. But that's an entire World War I rabbit hole side of things with the razzle-dazzle kind of a deal. But nevertheless, the Russians are attempting in a minor way to do that today. And here's how. The front being painted black and leaving the center gray gives it this kind of effect right here. It cuts off pretty much the bow and the stern. I don't really know what in the world they're planning on distracting anyone with, because anyone looking at the ship, even with a black painted bow and stern, are going to go, that's a Russian warship right there, and we know that the bow's up here because it's black. Duh, you can still see it. It's not like it's breaking up its form or anything. It's just a different paint job, so hit it and kill it. And I don't really know what the point of this is, but they're still working on making a new camo pattern for their vessels.
Oh, well, I guess hopefully that works for him, but I really don't think that's going to work. Actually, I think it's going to work in Ukraine's favor, actually, because now they just painted the front of their ships black and the rear of it black, so now they'll know exactly what a Russian warship looks like from a distance.
Yeah, also, I think this is something interesting they're pointing out here, and it is, actually. You can see that in this video of one of the Rapucha-class landing ships getting destroyed off of the Crimean coast just about, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks ago, you can see clearly in this painting, well, not in this painting, in this video, I'm getting very confused about everything, sorry y'all. You can see that the bow and stern are painted black. Look, you can see the black paint cuts off right there on the stern, and it cuts off about right here on the bow. It did not do anything to stop this landing ship from getting blown up and destroyed, so it's a little stupid to do this. It's completely pointless, really, because it's not really changing anything or stopping anyone from seeing anything, so overall, a really stupid tactic and a really stupid strategy by, once again, one of the stupidest navies on Earth, which is the Russian Navy. But moving on from that little bit of naval news, it's time for us to get on into those sweet, sweet location unknowns that everyone adores, because we don't know where these clips went, but one thing we do know is that they're good clips, and they're worth watching and showing. But let me show y'all what we got. First, we got some pictures here of a tank in the 93rd Brigade on some training exercises. Overall, pretty cool.
Nice.
Nice. Really good pictures.
Nice snow.
All I gotta say is that the first one really does go hard. Feel free to screenshot, but beyond that, just showing you a little bit of the 1 second. A little bit of the battle activities. Thank you. A little bit of the battle activities going on down there with the Fighting 93rd, the famous Fighting 93rd. Moving on from that and into our next little bit of news, we also got to see that some of the Ukrainian air defense was celebrating the downing of 9 Russian planes in 10 days. He's having a lot of fun.
He's flying like a bird. Look at him go.
Remember,
Man,
Matthew, no one can have fun in a war.
Man, only the Ukrainians will do something like this.
Sitting on top of a gush gun, flapping like a bird. And even the gunner's getting into it.
Dude, he's making the gunner work hard to like pull this prank off. Like the gunner's getting a workout.
Man, let's look at the gunner again when he was spinning this thing around. Look.
Man, he is cranking.
Man, I guess you could say he is cranking one out for Ukrainian victory. But nevertheless, that's the end of that clip right there. And we're now going to be moving on to our next one. Oh, dear. But nevertheless, we're going to be moving into the Ukrainians being able to destroy some sheds today. According to the air defense report, overnight, the Ukrainians were able to down 10 of them. A very good job, and once again showing that the Ukrainians are keeping their skies safe and clear of the Russian foe, which is always amazing to see. But moving on from that little bit of news, and on into one of our last bits of location unknown news, before we get into the rest of the frontline info, we also got to see the Russian losses of the day. And oh, buddy.
Woo, 6 Bobcats,
Woo!
let's go. And they're getting some pretty rough losses on the Russians these days, I'm telling you. 2 planes as well. I'm seeing they counted those today. That's good. And also, man, 47 vehicles today? That's crazy.
And I gotta tell you, it's been a crazy day. 6 Bobcat skid steers have been destroyed, along with 1,060 Russian soldiers being wounded and killed, being taken out of the battle. 14 armored personnel carriers have also been destroyed. 47 supply trucks have also been knocked out as well, along with 14 main battle tanks, 20 artillery systems, 24 drones, the 2 Su-34s that were shot down yesterday, included in today's casualty report, 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems, and overall, equaling up to being an incredible day. And once again, the Ukrainians showing that they are holding those lines well and inflicting incredibly high Russian casualties. And of course, that segues us directly into all of the fighting and action that has been happening, not just inside of Avdiivka today, where the Ukrainians were able to stop the Russians dead, figuratively and literally. It was also pretty heavy fighting across the entirety of Ukraine, but the Ukrainians were able to hold their ground. But before we get into all of this, I have to say this really quickly. The amount of people who have supported the channel tonight has been unbelievable. We were actually wondering what in the world has happened, what in the world is special about today that so many people found the channel worthwhile to support. And I got to thank all of y'all, and we also want to take a quick moment to address 3 super chats before we move on into the news. And so, well, the rest of the news. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, let's get into them. So our first one is from Frostbite Productions, and it puts in a very generous $100 donation. And YouTube tells us that is their 10th ever super chat of the channel. So huge thanks to you, Frostbite, for that support. That's very generous. He says, salute to the Leaf Spring Army. Enforcer and Enforcer Matt, you both continue to impress me with every episode, remaining dedicated to the cause, and YouTube needs more people like you who strive to stand for what is right, and stay strong, stay vigilant, and your days will be victorious. And man, very kind words, Frostbite. And also, thank you very much for the very, very much of the kind words there. And we appreciate it very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, Frostbite Productions, thank you amazingly for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Thank you for throwing in your 10th super chat. And Frostbite, you've been around for an incredibly long time, a very long time. I believe, from what I remember, you were around since the first few months of the war and are still here today. And I gotta say, thank you for saluting the Leaf Spring Army. And thank you so much for enjoying the amazing community that we have. It is the best out there on the internet, no doubt about it. And I'm always happy to come here every single night and get to talk to each and every one of y'all. It makes me so happy. And it makes me very happy to know, Frostbite, that you're one of those folks and have continued to stay here for so long. And thank you so much for just showering us with incredibly kind words, because it's incredible to know that so many people really do enjoy what we do. And Frostbite, I thank you so much for enjoying what we do. It's crazy, and I've run out of words to say to everyone who throws in kind words, but it just means a great deal to me. And thank you so much for enjoying our dedication to the cause. We don't waver in our support for Ukraine. We don't bash the Ukrainian armed forces and their abilities. We don't sit there and lie to try and fearmonger for clicks, because we're really self-centered and more so pro-Russian, but we try and hide it behind a fake facade, which some YouTubers try and do, and that became very clear today. We make sure to actually be pro-Ukrainian. I have a friend in Ukraine. This isn't something I did to virtue signal or to try and feel good about myself. This is something I did because I cared. And I got to thank you so much for enjoying how much care we have and appreciating it, and also continuing to watch it as we keep on covering the war until it actually does end. I wish there were more people on YouTube that actually were like that, because there are a lot of them that aren't. And I feel like as the war keeps going, it becomes a lot more clear who those people really are. But beyond that, thank you so much once again, and we will be victorious, because we are victorious every single night. that the Least Spring Army survives. Because the Least Spring Army
Love Ukraine.
is the only community in the Ukraine war that has raised $1.3 million single-handedly through all the fundraisers that we've ever run. We have helped
Yes,
out
sir.
Ukraine more than any other YouTube channel has been able to single-handedly. And that says a lot to me about who y'all are and what this group is able to do. It's crazy because just the other day, Razum for Ukraine reached out to us and thanked us so much for fundraising for him, and we were able to boast to them because they said that they could do the accounting, but they were asking us to do it really quickly for them so they didn't have to go through and do a massive headache worth of effort. But we did the calculating. And we found out that out of all the fundraisers we've run for Razum alone, we had raised $273,415 exactly. That is huge. That is incredibly huge. And it's crazy to think that we were able to do that. And it was only through the Least Spring Army and its amazing determination and ability to support that we were able to make that kind of a number possible for Razum. Their support has actually saved lives. Their support does incredible work. They helped Ukrainian soldiers to go to college after they're done serving in the armed forces. They help them out on the front lines with humanitarian aid. They help Ukrainian citizens behind the lines with all kinds of things. That's just one of the fundraisers, one of the nonprofits that we supported through the fundraisers. And I got to say that is amazing to know that we've been able to do that. And I got to thank you, Frostbite Productions, for being a part of that. If it wasn't for folks like you who supported those fundraisers and supported this channel, none of this would have been possible. And as long as Matthew and me have breath in our bodies and are able to keep doing this, we're going to do this until the war ends. The Least Spring Army will go down in history, not just for being pro-Ukrainian, but for being one of the most incredible and influential communities in the entire Western world. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and put an LSA in the chat if you are looking forward to the future. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I just want to say real quick, I've seen some folks say in the chat that they came into the stream tonight extremely worried about the reports that were coming out today. And they said that they're worried for Ukraine. And also, I just want to tell everyone that the headlines that you may be seeing somewhere that say that Ukraine's front line is falling are simply false. Ukraine is holding strong along the entire front line. And while it is true the Russians are trying to advance along the entire thing because they got basically emboldened by that Avdiivka, I guess you could say Pyrrhic victory, nothing is really happening on the front lines. The Russians aren't making any progress. And in the one or two little isolated areas where they have, it's a strategic retreat by Ukraine. So don't fall for the bullcrap out there that people are trying to spew. I think people are like getting desperate to get clicks, and they're putting out these false titles, not knowing that it really upsets people quite a bit because there's some of us out there that actually care about Ukraine winning, and they don't want to get upset when there's false and fake news running around out there. So don't get upset. It's okay. It's totally fine. I just want to tell some folks that because I see some folks are still very upset. But it's going to be all okay. The aid will get to Ukraine eventually, and the problem will be solved. But Ukraine is holding strong. But with that, we're moving on to our next super chat here, which goes to Blake Friedman, who throws in a $50 donation. And huge shout out to Blake for that very generous support. He says, today marks 3 years since I discovered the Enforcer, and I found you through your map. And I've never looked back, but only going forward. And glad to have Enforcer Matt back with us, and you were missed. And thank you very much, Blake, for that. I'm glad to be back still. He says, please take a question from the chat.
And thank you so much, Blake, for your first super chat to the channel ever in its history. I got to thank you for that, and I got to thank you so much for enjoying it that greatly. It's crazy to think, Blake, that folks like you have been with this channel for so long. It's crazy. And I say this every single time, but it's crazy when you really think about it in the perspective of how much time has passed. When you first found this channel, Blake, I was 20 years old and had just turned 20, just about a week before the war began. And now I'm 22 years old, and we're doing this as an actual business, a news business, pretty much. And we're just continuing on. We are going incredibly strong. We've gained another 150, 200 subscribers today alone, and that's actually one of the lower days that we've had over the past month from a day-to-day basis, but that's still huge. It's crazy to think about. And it's even crazier to think how many maps have been made. I'm going to show y'all something real quick, because this is something you will rarely ever see, which is a behind-the-scenes look at my Google My Maps account. And I'm going to show y'all how many maps have been made since I first started doing this on day one. So let me move this over here. And these are all the maps that I've made.
Damn. Man, what? You've been making a lot of maps, jeez.
Yeah, that's how many of them are made. There's a brand new one each week. They're made fresh every single night. There's a lot of effort put into it because I try and geolocate all of the clips I can and figure out where they were, and try and approximate their position. If they're Ukrainian ones, move them a few miles away from where they really are, just in case if anyone's really paying attention seriously that shouldn't be. All kinds of stuff. But this is the amount of maps that I've made doing this for over 2 years, and each map has approximately 300 markers on them. So if you do the math, and each week is 7 days, and there's been 735. So let me do that really quick. 735 divided by 7. Actually 735 divided by 7. That's 105 weeks that we've been covering this war exactly as of today. And then you multiply that by approximately 300 because that's about how many markers are on each map. And I have shown y'all around 31,500 separate video recorded events that have happened since the war began. 31,500 approximately. And that is insane to think how much effort has just been put into the maps alone, because really we are the only Ukraine war channel that makes our own map. Everyone else uses another map. Like some people just use Deep State UA. No knock against them. It's just that that's really low effort to run a YouTube channel and then just use other people's maps. That's literally putting in no work at all. And that's why I make sure to put in work on mine and make sure to update my own front lines based off of what I know and to put down all the markers that we have, because like over here on the left side, these are all the markers just for this week. That's every single one of them from here, day 1 of this week, all the way up until the last marker right here, which was from today. And it's insane to think that folks like you, Blake, found us through this map. We've been doing it loads. And I remember back in the day, tens of thousands of people a week would look at this map. Nowadays, it's around 10,000 people a week. Click on the map and download them because it gives us a number on how many people do. But that's still crazy to me to think that so many people like you, Blake, enjoy this thing and really love what we do and the effort we put in to make our maps like this and to cover the news like we do. And thank you so much for being happy that Enforcer Matt's back. I'm very happy that he's back. And together, we're working towards amazing things in the future. Much like I was talking about a while ago about the Lee Spring Army flag, today I was actually working on getting down a signature for the Lee Spring Army flags that will be coming out soon, where I can sign the Enforcer onto all of the flags. But it is going to be so cool. I'm so excited for that, and Enforcer Matt is helping out massively in the background with that. He's really taking over making this brand new merch store a reality. But still, thank you so much once again, and we will make sure to grab a live chat question. So Matthew, what kind of live chat question do we have?
All right, and our first live chat question of the night is going to go to Old Warrior, who says, is there any truth that Igor Girkin was found hanging in his cell?
Not that I've heard of. Igor Girkin is still alive from what I understand, and that is an unfounded rumor at the moment from what I've heard. It's also just like the unfounded rumor, about the Ukrainians collapsing today, which is ridiculous. Like, honestly, y'all, if y'all hear someone say that from today specifically, that the Ukrainian front lines have collapsed and all hope is lost, I would unsubscribe from that channel and never look back, because they are an absolute liar that is only there to get clicks and views. Because the Ukrainians are doing well today. It's not an amazing day. They're not sweeping the Russians off the field and reclaiming the nation, but they are holding, and that's what counts. That's a good day in the books. And so people lying like that is just, it just pisses me off. It really does piss me off, because they show to me they have absolutely not a damn to give about Ukraine, and they only care about their AdSense and their subscriber numbers, and that's it, and trying to get views off of fear-mongering and flat-out lies. But on that specific thing about Girkin being dead, Girkin, from what I know, is not dead at the moment. He's still alive. But with that, I hope that does address that live chat fairly well. And with that, we are on to the last super chat of this segment, and then we're going to be moving right back into the frontline news.
And the last one of the segment goes to Avir Anthony, who's obviously a long-time channel legend. And thank you very much, Avir, for that $50 support, which is very generous of you. And sadly, no comment to address. But, Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much, Avir Anthony, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who have made this thing possible, and while you haven't thrown in a comment, Avera, you've been here forever and helped to support this channel, pretty much marching side by side with us here on the stream itself, running this thing, because your support is helping to make this possible. And so, thank you so much, greatly, once again. While you didn't throw in a comment, we know what you would have said, and I just got to say thank you so much for that, and thank you for being an old guard of the channel. And so with that, we are now going to be moving on from that question segment and moving on into the northeastern front lines, because near the Tavaljanka area today, we got to see that an STRV, a Swedish Leopard 2, was apparently hit by a FPV drone near the Kupiansk direction. Here's the clip. We can see the drone spooling up.
That's the first time I've ever seen one like take off from the ground in the footage.
Yeah, this is the Russians filming it, so there's no OPSEC at all on their end. They just film it from takeoff to impact.
That was stupid.
It ain't easy being cheesy. But we can see the Russians trying to find themselves to stirve. And we can see them slamming the RPG round into the turret. But what's interesting about this is that this STRV appears to have already been abandoned, because you can see that the commander and gunner's hatch are wide open and there's no crew members inside. So this STRV has been out there for a bit, and it looks like they just attempted to hit it to try and disable it so that way no one could come back and recover it later. But nevertheless, just showing a little bit of the ongoing fighting going on in that northeastern direction. But it's time for us to move on a little bit further south to the area of Tokarivka, where we got to see the Russian forces were ending up getting the short end of the stick, especially down here, as the 63rd and the 45th were hammering them like they were some kind of nails sticking out of a wooden board. Check it out. We're going to be muting the country music. Have you ever wanted to watch Russians get obliterated in a million pieces? Then watch out for the Orc Obliterator 9000. Watch as this giant Russian column of infantry gets completely obliterated in a single artillery burst. Boom, baby. They're gone. The smoke rising over the fields, and the Russians are not crying. They are sleeping very well. Guts, glory, Russians. But moving on from that, very nice to see that they're able to, of course, obliterate the Russians in that area, but it's also time to show some Russians surrendering to a drone because they're just so scared. You know, this is what that Ukrainian collapse that some people out there on YouTube are talking about. The Ukrainians are collapsing so well that the Russians have decided they're going to surrender and fight on their side to try and help them in the midst of their collapse. Terrible stuff. We need to cry harder.
They got that hardcore trap.
Man, they got that real stuff. Sounds like DJ Vlad's up in the house, and I bet you, man, he's dropping those beats like he's dropping copyright strikes on God.
Oh, man. DJ Vlad doesn't play about those copyright strikes, I'm telling you.
Man, DJ Vlad's a real one, I'm not gonna lie. But anyways, we see the Russian taking the vial and opening it up. And that's the letter that he got, pretty much telling him to surrender. And we see the Russian is agreeing to surrender. And you know what? I'm going to do one special request from the live chat, because Barry Baldrinet said, can you say this in the Sam Elliott voice? And Barry, I cannot say that in the Sam Elliott voice. I have a high standard, but nevertheless, get it cheap at Harbor Freight. And I hope you're happy about that, Barry. I hope you are. But, you know, anyway, so you can see the Ukrainians here getting ready to process our boy. And that's the end of the clip. They got him. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. But moving on from that, once again, we got to point out, y'all, that's what Ukrainian defeat looks like. It's so bad that the Russians end up giving up themselves and surrendering. Terrible stuff. Terrible news. But hey, on the bright side, though, when we move on down to the Kreminna area, we got to see United 24 today showing the Russians getting wiped out by the Azov Special Forces group. Well, the 12th Azov Special Forces. Once again, y'all, I got to point out, and I can't point this out enough, because other quote-unquote pro-Ukrainian channels, you know, they're not in it for anything rather than just telling you all the truth. The Ukrainians are just getting beat back so badly that what y'all are really watching here is the 12th Azov wiping out these Russians just so that way they can't see the Russian victory coming tomorrow, y'all. Remember that.
Kurwa, skontrolujesz wychod.
Now, I'm going to say this really quickly. We might end up getting copyrighted for the music playing of this, because for some reason, 924 doesn't license all their music sometimes, so we end up getting copyrighted. But I'm going to play the music because I generally give leeway to 924 and trust them when it comes to their music. Hopefully it's licensed, but if you see an ad on the stream tomorrow, it's probably because we let this music play in this video. But here's the clip.
Я закидаю гранатку. Бах-бах, ну и полетели.
There's the enemy position right over there.
Вилазь, гніда! Вилазь! Стас! Вилазь!
Oh, and here comes the FPV. And here comes the AT. Get him, boy! Bop! Oh!
Damn. Let him have it.
Пошли! Давай, давай, давай! Забил, забил!
Heavy metal plays strongly as they go in and clear out the Russian positions.
Пусто! Пусто! Падаем, падаем вниз!
Dang, this music is busting.
Like they're trying to do a video game thing here.
Man, they're trying to emulate Helldivers. Aw, man. We see them now advancing past that clear dugout and into the next ones in the Severonsky Forest.
These guys aren't playing around. They're letting them let the bullets fly.
Oh yeah, they're letting lead sling. And there in goes the grenade right there.
Плюс, пятерка, давай!
You now see him getting another grenade out and flinging it into the trench. And right on the money.
Кидай, кидай, подожди! Держи вход!
You now see him getting out another grenade to throw into the dugout here in this trench. And there it goes, and they're out of there. They're waiting for the explosion. And there it is. And now they're going to fire into the dugout to make sure to extra clear it. As the music is just going ham.
That guy did a mag dump, like an entire mag dump on that hole right there.
Yeah, he did. We now see him continuing to clear it out. And now they're going in.
Есть кто-то? Минус, минус, чисто!
And the minuses.
And that's why the Azov is an absolute legendary unit, because that was some crazy fighting right there.
That was insane. Surely the kind of stuff that you would see in a movie or a video game for the most part. And I mean, hell, man. I mean, like, wars really are like video games after all. Hopefully you're just not the one that's losing. But beyond that, we did get to see the 12th Azov was doing an amazing job. And I quickly have to circle back for a moment to talk about Moldova, because I've seen a lot of people talking about Moldova in the chat. And a lot of people have been saying what should be done or what we should do in response to what the Russians may be attempting in Moldova. And Matthew, I've heard that a lot of people have had pretty much the same idea on this, but tell us what people have been thinking about what our response should be.
All right. So, in response to the question, if Russia responds to Transnistria by annexing it, do you think the West should intervene? 70%, an overwhelming amount of people said yes, Western allies should help, while only 14% said no, there is no advantage to do so. And in this situation, I would say that we really should jump in and help if that were to occur, because that indicates Russia's willingness to do the unthinkable, which is move on beyond Ukraine and open up the front even wider and invade other territories, which the Transnistria area is Moldovan territory. Whether or not people want to recognize that or not, it is technically part of Moldova, even though they're trying to separate. And if Russia's willing to go into Moldova and take that territory, that means they're willing to go into other places as well. And it's important to stop them up front. And let's don't wait for it to get really out of hand. Let's go ahead and put a stop to it instead of letting things just be out of control. But that's my opinion on it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would certainly have to say that Western allies should intervene and help in that situation, because if we don't, we're starting to set an incredibly bad precedent throughout the entirety of the region that we're not going to help anyone under any circumstance. So I'd say we'd seriously have to get involved at that point. But I hope that does address that quite well, at least in my opinion. And moving on from that, and down into the area of Bakhmut, because we have a lot of news going on in this area. We got to see that apparently the Russians are getting Starlink in some fairly large numbers, and apparently there's something that we may not know about in the background. Now, I'm not saying that Starlink is openly selling to the Russians, but they are getting a lot of these Starlink systems. Check out this clip.
У нас в этом месяце получилось непланово поддержать некоторые наши части и направления коптером небольшим количеством. Передаем подразделениям специального назначения Центрального военного округа 9 матрисов.
See, they got some drones, some Mavics. We can also see some Starlink systems in boxes over here.
Будем пробовать. Следующая партия поставка у нас будет больше, в количестве 30 штук. В этот раз передаем ребятам 5 штук. Ребят, берегите себя, оставайтесь живыми и здоровыми. Мы всегда вас поддержим. Спасибо.
I gotta say, it's a little weird that the Starlinks are starting to show up in fairly large numbers, and these aren't fabrications. These look to be legitimate Starlink systems, and it may be leading a little bit more credence to the idea that the Starlinks are being either getting into Russia through clandestine means circumventing sanctions, or Starlink is actually quietly selling to the Russian government or to the Russian public. If that was to be the case, which God forbid if it was, I believe that there should be a congressional hearing made about that particular instance, because that could be a bit of a strategic concern that the Russians would also have access to Starlink systems, and there needs to be an investigation conducted as to why these are getting into Russia at such a large number, and what can be done to stop that, or if Starlink is directly selling these to the Russians, what kind of actions need to be taken against the Starlink company and certain individuals in charge of Starlink that are now aiding and abetting American rivals and pretty much enemies of the United States. But beyond that, we're going to be moving on out of that clip and on into our next one up in the area of Krasnopolivka, where we got to see that the Ukrainians blew up a Russian open-air mine depot. We're going to be muting that. And we see them dropping a little bomblet onto the mine pit, and there it goes.
Oh.
Ooh! That high explosive is something else. What the hell is this? It's flammable.
It's a trash pit.
It's
Gas being stored next to your toilet paper supplies.
Look at all the MREs. It was nothing but MREs. They're on fire. Oh, man. Rip to the MREs. They're not going to be able to eat that nasty garbage. But look at that. It is just,
man, all the pig snout. It's all gone to waste.
Man, all that dog food and everything they're just nothing. They're going to be starving now.
You know, all the Russian soldiers are wishing and hoping that Prigozhin was back with his catering company again, because, you know, it wasn't exactly gourmet with Prigozhin, but it was better than pig snout.
Man, they're like, man, whatever happened to Concord, man? I'm just asking, you know, for a friend, not for me, just for a friend.
The Concord got grounded, Bliat, in more ways than one.
Man, they Concord crashed and burned after the coup. I'm not going to lie. But beyond that, we can see that the 30th Brigade is crashing and burning all of these nice little Russian pits. I don't know what these are beyond the open-air mine depot. It's just like trash heaps. Oh, Oh!
Hey, wow.
Whoa!
They came running out that fire, man. Oh my God. They came running through it.
Dude,
What's he doing running out?
I don't even think they know what they're
confused.
doing.
Man, I can't believe that. That dude literally sprinted straight out of the fire. Where did he even come from?
I don't even know. Like, he just came, like, hopping out of it.
Like he spawned.
Dude, it's like one of those little fireworks, you know, where you light it and, like, the snake starts crawling out of the firework or whatever. It's like that, but with Russians.
I was not expecting to see that. Literally somebody sprinting through the flames.
Wait,
oh my
hang on.
God.
We gotta go back, man, because it was 3 guys. It was like the 3 Stooges coming out of there. Watch. wait, here we go. We're about to get to it. Hang on. It's almost there.
Look at that. Okay,
Goodness
they're about to
gracious,
jump
Mo.
out.
We gotta get out of
Oh
it.
my God.
Gee, Curly, I wonder what's going on. That's it. And they're all there. It is, the 3 Stooges of the Russian army, right there.
You know their faces are burned, man, because they literally just like walked through it. Like it was weird. They weren't really acting that crazy. Like they just ran through it like they were running through just normal air.
Man, I don't even know what the hell to make of that, but that was something else. I'm not gonna lie. But anyways, we're gonna be moving on from that clip. I've watched a good bit of it to go see the mines blow up, but I didn't know there was Russians running through fire and flames like the song goes later on in the clip. So that was a shock to me. But moving on from that and down to the Avdiivka area, we did get to see the Ukrainians also hunting down Russians here. This was the 42nd Brigade that was able to pull this off. And there they go. Okay, we're going to mute the trailer music, but... Oh, good riddance. The moderators are Matthew and me, so if you don't like it, it's the highway, pal. But anyways, we can see the Russians...
Hit the road, Jack. Come back.
Whoa. Hit the road, Jack. If you don't like the moderators, you lying, two-faced, fat bastard, pony sausage.
Damn.
And that guy just got it. Ooh.
Whoa, Jack, look out for that bomb going for your face.
Whoa,
Whoa,
Nelly.
look
Whoa,
out.
whoa, watch out, Nelly. Whoa. What the hell? Whoa. Are you okay? I swear to God. But anyways, another one.
Oh. I thought it was a hot dog, but it was a drone.
I just wanted a hot dog, and what I got was some delusional guy running his mouth at the hills of the Himalayas.
You want to do some push-ups, fatty?
Oh, I'm fatty. Oh, but anyways, moving on from that clip in Avdiivka, moving on down into the direction of Opitne, we also got to see that some Russians ended up getting obliterated inside of their buhankas, which are Scooby-Doo vans, and then they just kind of recorded the aftermath. So here's the clip.
Хочу показать вам, что такое война и как работают наши парни-водители. Вот что остается.
So what this Russian is saying, and I'm a good Russian translator, he's going, like, zoink scoop, there's early transport, Racky, walk! But anyways.
2 машины заходило за пацанами.
Oh my lord, this one actually flipped.
And burned out.
I gotta tell you, I'm not a buhanka driver, but some say I'm the best. Some say I have the best buhankas. And I gotta tell you that these are some real big buhankas right here. What type of stupid name is that for a van, by the way? A buhanka. You know what that sounds like? That sounds like kahuna. Like, it's not, wow, you got some great buhankas right there. It's like, what the hell is that as a name? What type of...
And you're wildin'.
No, I'm just saying. Like, who came up with that name?
Парни не успели дойти. Это и есть так называемая зона СВО.
I'll never understand why these Russians get out and record this equipment on fire.
I don't know either. But, Matthew, you know what they're going to say when they put this thing on Facebook Marketplace? Low mileage, well taken care of, no low balls. I know what I got.
Чтобы наши дети не видели этого.
That's what he's saying right there.
With a vodka bottle sitting under the tire.
That's it. You have to change it, Chad. I'm going to have to show you that meme later. But moving on from that and down to Klishkiivka, we also got to see the 93rd Brigade attacking with their drones. Check it out. All right. Well, that sounds like a copyrighted riff right there. So we're going to just mute that and watch the 93rd slam this drone down into a Russian. And I got to say, the Russians are scared whenever they hear the Ukrainians just droning on and on. Re-engineering everything, said the enforcer just suddenly sounded like Jerry Seinfeld. What's the deal with airline food? But anyways, this Russian's about to find out what's the deal with airlines because he's about to go flying. But that's the end of that clip right there, and we could say fairly reasonably the 93rd's doing some good work in the area and holding the front down. But meanwhile, we also got to see that apparently the 93rd and other units that have the CV-90 believe that the CV-90 is the best armored personnel carrier that the Ukrainians have within their arsenal. I disagree. I think the Bradley is a little bit better, but the CV-90 is a very close second. According to what this Ukrainian commander said in the quote, thanks to the Barracuda camouflage, which we now have on Swedish equipment, the vehicle is 70% less visible. And this thing looks sick. Absolutely love them. Pick goes hard. Feel free to screenshot. But moving on from that little clip and on past the Avdiivka area, since we covered that earlier, it's time for us to get on down towards Konstantinivka, where we also got to see that Russian forces were destroyed in this direction. All right. Well, look at that. And look at them go. Oh, and the Russians go fleeing. You can see them right there. Oh my good lord, there's a lot of them. And it just hit the vehicle, knocking it out. And here comes the next one.
They did the Charlie Chaplin special.
You know they did, Matthew. They were running for the hills like there was no tomorrow. They were running for the hills like the hills didn't have eyes. But the hills do have eyes because the Ukrainians are in them. And Death for Real said, American bias. You absolutely know it, Death for Real. I love American weapons. America puts so much money into our weapons, I have to like them because it's the only return on investment that we sometimes get from them. But beyond that, we can see that they're slamming the Russian forces very well in this clip with the drones over and over and over, making sure that the Russians will never be able to recover these things and that they'll never be usable again. That's the end of the clip, but I'm very happy to see it, and we always love to watch the Russians getting the short end of the stick every single day. But moving on from that and down into the area of Avdiivka, we also get to see a Dana SPG on the move down here in this clip. And boy, does this thing look clean. The Dana SPG looks like it's on the exact same, what would we call it? Chassis as the Dita is. But it is sick looking. I love these SPGs. Look at that. Isn't it something? It is something.
Come on, Bobby. Can I get some of that damn Adidas?
But that guy does look like Bobby. Like, all grown up from King of the Hill. Like, I'm not going to lie. But anyways, you know, the numbers are going through the roof. Everyone loves the Dana. I love the Dana. But everyone's going to love the Dita because the Dita is going to be deeting on them Russians like there's no tomorrow. But moving on from that little clip of news, and a little bit further down our lines and into the area of Robotne, we also got to see that the Ukrainians were obliterating Russians that were trying to move into Robotne today. What do you know? I mean, it's crazy. It's like the Ukrainians are actually doing well, unlike what other lying people out there would want you to believe because they want your views. Shad music ensues as the Ukrainians wipe these Russians out like it's light work. Look at this one. This one's just racing, pretty much. It's on Forza 5, but it's about to end up being Forza 9 because it's going to be dead. But there goes the Russians trying to dismount and run into one of the village houses on the very southern end of Robotne.
Man, it's just like out of a Disney cartoon or something. The ants are getting out of the vehicle and running right into the hut, and then it blows up.
I think that's Looney Tunes because Disney never does violence, Matthew. Never.
That's true. Yeah, Disney wasn't for the violence. I was watching the ripoff of Disney that you get off those internet sites.
man, I was listening to Mel Blanc scream into that microphone for every single character. You know, where it'd be like, "Hey, what's up, Doc?" Or something like that. You know, it's just out of the blue.
Turn off those lights.
Yeah, yeah, that one too. And we can see the Russian. Oh, it's just quiet. And then they're when the Russian, he's gone. And there goes the APCs. They're trying to leave as fast as they can. They're already under fire. And there they go, the two of them. Tweedledee and Tweedledum out there. And there they go. They just got blown up. And there goes the first one. That was on normal camera. And I feel like the second one's about to disappear here in a second, too. Oh, that one's going ham. It went off-road. Here comes this one getting on the road. It's probably going to run over another mine because they're just stupid like that. Oh, never mind. Here comes the FPV drone that's going to finish off number 2. And it looks like the FPV drone's trying to get itself a nice little lineup here, and looks like it has. This APC has come to a dead stop, and is now about to be dead stopped, period. And that's the end of that clip, but the Ukrainians are doing some very good work in Robotny and holding those Russians back like there was nothing to it at all. They're doing really good. But moving on from that and down into the area of Novokakhovka, we also got to see that a Russian ATGM crew that was on a house, or more so a building, nearer to the side of the river, was knocked out today. The Ukrainians found a certain kind of an anti-tank weapon that you can see right up there in the caption. It's a F-A-G-O-T. I call it a Fago, like the drink.
Wow.
But the actual way you pronounce that is the other kind of a way that YouTube would ban me if I said it. But you can see this little ATGM getting blown away. Whoever named this thing must have hated it, because I don't know why they'd name it that. But beyond that, we can see them about to knock it out. And there it goes. It's gone. Like in one small poof, the ATGM has been destroyed. And of course, we all love it. Slow. We love it.
Slawa.
Slawa, Ukraine. But anyways, that's the end of the clip. And very nice to see that the Ukrainians are doing work all across the front lines. And you know, they're just being the heroes that they always have been. There is no doubt about it in my mind that the Ukrainians are doing incredible work. Not only is their morale high, but their belief in their ability to carry themselves to victory is something that is highly commendable and something I believe their faith is well founded in. Hopefully, Western countries like the United States will begin to support them in full again, and we'll be able to see the Ukrainian victory come sooner rather than later, thanks to massive amounts of Western support. I have a feeling that no matter what, that's probably going to be coming around the corner. But who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. But moving on up into Kyiv, it's time for us to hear the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 735 of the war. And so, without further ado, I'm going to be trying to get y'all to the speech through
It's
this.
a long one.
Yeah, it's a long one, and most of it's not Zelensky talking. So we're going to skip forward to that, where Zelensky talks, which is right here. And then we're just going to let all of it play. So here is the speech.
Слава Україні. Дуже вам дякую. Слово вам, пане президенте. Дуже дякую, шановний прем'єр-міністр Рама, шановні колеги, шановні друзі. Насамперед, я хотів подякувати прем'єр-міністру Рамі за всі особисті
There are no captions that we can get for this. Let me go and check something out real quick. Video collection, perhaps? That's what we were at, and there's no translation available for that clip. And this is interesting. This is a little concerning to me, Matthew, because
I guess you'll just have to translate it manually.
That's going to be really tough, man. I'm not going to lie. I don't know if I can do that, but we'll give it a shot. You know, we'll give it a shot.
Рама, шановні колеги, шановні друзі. Насамперед,
Russia is going to lose. They're not winning. The front line is being held by Ukraine very well.
особисті
We hope the West will give more support very quickly and stop holding up the aid and actually fulfill their commitments. That would be great.
We beat the Russians so badly they now call us daddy.
Man, I hate that there's no translation, though, because I really would like to hear what he's saying.
I know, I would too, but
і тепер
no good translation at all. Let's see if anyone's got an answer in the chat.
Еді, пане прем'єр-міністре, я високо
They
ціную.
said there's a similar vid of a speech on YouTube that might have a translation.
So let's see if we can find it. Let's see, Southeast Europe Summit. Let me go pull that up on YouTube and let me go see if I can find one that is translated properly. Because they have a translator talking over Zelensky. Let's see, Southeast European Summit. Let me see if I can
I think I was summing it up pretty good, though. Like, if Zelensky didn't even say what I said he should have said it because it was a good thing.
Sadly, I don't think we'd be able to play any of these because they're coming out by folks who'd probably be a little bit copyright happy. So sadly, can't, you know, because one of
Must
them
be DJ Vlad.
DJ Vlad's a real one, man.
Yeah, DJ Vlad. Shout out to DJ Vlad, by the way.
Shout out to DJ Vlad doing the Lord's work out there. Huge respect to DJ Vlad. But beyond that, I can't see any kind of a translation. So sadly, we're going to have to skip this one. But beyond that, we're now going to be moving on from that little speech and on into our question segment. The second part of fun of this entire stream. It's always fun here. It's always great here. We get to talk about whatever y'all want to talk about. We get to look at your home cities. We get to look at places around the world. We get to answer questions, go down historical rabbit holes, or talk about anything. We could talk about food. We can talk about anything you want because it's the question segment and everything goes. But beyond that, Matthew, we have something to talk about. A little bit of
All right, and yes, we. Oh, go ahead.
No, please go ahead. By all means, please proceed.
Well, the topic that we have to discuss is the poll, which is currently running. The question is, Belarusian dissidents announce a coup plan against Lukashenko to overthrow his regime, and what are your thoughts? And it looks like 35% said Lukashenko will be overthrown, while 29% said they will try and probably fail, and 24% said it's over before it even begins. And I'm in the 24%. Since, like I said in the video today, if you watched the short war video, I went in and went pretty hard on the coup planners here. You don't announce that ahead of time. I hate to break that to them. You're supposed to keep that secret because now Lukashenko is going to be on pins and needles thinking, oh, God, somebody's coming to get me. And he's going to have all his army and stuff outside waiting for him. So now they're on blast. So that's not what you want to do when you try to take a government over, is you don't go and tell them you're about to come in and take them over. So I don't think he's going to be overthrown. I think they've blown it. And I'm not really sure if they were ever serious, because why would you do that? I think maybe they're just trying to scare Lukashenko or something. And they've probably done a good job of that at this point. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to be entirely honest. That sounds like something that bad coup planners would do, is try and sit there and pre-announce it. That you don't pre-announce that stuff. This isn't like a massive pre-order merch drop or anything. Stay tuned. There might be one in the future. Not trying to plug that or anything, but just be ready. But that's not something that you pre-announce as, oh, by the way, we're going to run a coup at 7 on Tuesday. I hope y'all are okay with that. You don't do that. You do what Prigozhin did, and you make everyone piss their pants by just going, I'm angry, we're starting now. And then everyone's like, what? Wait a minute, you're doing it now? And then, you know, everyone's scared. And then they're taking down billboards and everything, and they got helicopters flying around, and they're ripping up interstates. It was a fun time in the summer of last year when that happened. But beyond that, yeah, you don't announce that kind of stuff, because now they're ready and they're going to be waiting. So I think if they did announce it, they're probably not going to ever follow through, because they know everyone would be waiting and ready for them. But with that, I hope that does address that well. But man, dude, imagine everyone just pre-announced everything before they did it. You know, like, I'm going to, you know, try and, you know, overthrow the government. You know, it's like, that's not smart, because guess what? They're going to stop you. Like, they're going to stop you now for sure. But with that, I hope
imagine if you're the American government or something, and you decided to attack a foreign country, and you said, ring, ring, ring. Hello, enemy. I just want to let you know we're going to be hitting you later this evening. And they said, okay, thank you. And they hang their phone up, and they're ready to go.
Hi, Albert Daddy. I was just wanting to let you know that you're not going to be a daddy anymore. We're going to kill you. It's like, I don't think that's going to work.
Thanks for the heads up. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that greatly. Quick, get the van. We're running. But anyways, you know, I would say that's just not smart. That just I don't know about y'all, but to me, that doesn't sound like it would be a smart move to announce that you're going to, you know, overthrow the government in any country for that matter, you know. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. You know, I'm not an expert on everything, but I'm kind of a little bit of an expert on announcing things like that aren't well if you're actually planning on conducting a coup. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and now it's time to move back into our super chats, and the first one goes to Skilled Painter. Throws in a $20 donation. Thank you very much for that support. He says, keep up the good and hard work and putting out the news for all of us, and the only channel I'm dedicated to for true and accurate news reports, and LSA for life.
And thank you so much, Skilled Painter, for enjoying this channel. And thank you for finding this to be the channel you pay attention to hear the news. We try our best to get out the best news to y'all every single day. Not best as in it's uplifting and great to hear, but the most accurate news that we can on what's going on. And I got to thank you so much for appreciating that, Skilled Painter. I got to thank you for the high praise of saying that this is the only channel you go to for that, because there are so many out there who do what we do. So many of them that try to also do what we do with maps and, you know, trying to act like geolocating and everything, you know, and all that stuff. But most of them end up falling a little short because, you know, they just don't know what they're talking about. And I'm happy to know that you like to know, well, you think we know what we're talking about. I can't guarantee you that, because sometimes we don't. And I kind of just say that, you know, I declare ignorance on certain topics. But nevertheless, thank you so much, Skilled Painter, for finding this channel to be worthwhile, finding it to be an incredible place, and not only that, putting your faith into this channel and supporting it to help it to keep running. I can't say this enough, but Skilled Painters, your support is something that makes this channel possible. And we've been saying this ever since the beginning of the war, and it's as true today as it was on day one. Well, not day one, it was like day 30 when we finally got monetized here on this channel. but y'all support is the only thing that makes this possible. We don't run ads, we don't have sponsors. And the only thing that we monetize on this channel is viewer support directly from y'all. And so when you throw in support, Skilled Painter, you make this channel possible, and you make it possible for us to keep this thing running, so that way you can be here and watch the channel you like the most. And so thank you so much for that support once again. You're helping your own favorite channel continue to survive, and, well, not only survive, but thrive. And it means a lot to us, and I got to thank you for that once again. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Matthew, did Skilled Painter want a live chat?
He actually did not.
Oh, for some reason I thought he did. But with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Nick, Still Thinking, LLC. Throws in a $20 donation. Thank you very much, good sir, for that support. He says, my wife, Carrie Ann, and I just want to say thank you for all the hard work you both put in, and long live the LSA. And shout out to the, what is it? Was it the first family of the LSA? Was that it? What was the thing they said last night?
I don't know.
First couple, I think.
Yeah,
I think it was the first couple. Yeah, first couple of the LSA, Nick and Carrie. Thank you very much for that support, and also the kind words as well. And yes, indeed, long live the LSA. And Enforcer, what say you?
And long live the Lee Spring Army, Nick. And thank you so much once again for support. Matthew, I feel like we ought to throw up the Lee Spring Army flag every time someone says long live the LSA, like it's a calling card or something like that. But nevertheless, I do have to say, thank you so much for both of you, Nick and Carrie Ann, for enjoying this hard work and supporting this channel to help us to make this thing possible. It means a lot to us. And I gotta say something else. It is so funny how the war has progressed over time, Nick and Carrie Ann. Because at the beginning of the war, Super Chats usually were questions. Like, they were always questions attached to them. But nowadays, most Super Chats, everyone just says, thank you so much for running the channel. And I think we've ended up answering so many questions that there aren't really many more questions to answer. And so people are kind of a little hard-pressed to come up with something to put into a super chat rather than just thank you or nothing. But beyond that, I gotta thank you so much once again, Nick, for still being here and still supporting this channel with your 20th super chat in the history of this entire channel's existence. It means a lot to us, and I gotta thank you for supporting this channel so much and helping us to keep this thing running, because not only are you an amazing, both of y'all, amazing Lee Spring Army soldiers, y'all are also incredible supporters of the channel as well and help us to make this thing possible. And so thank you so much to both of y'all once again. And long live the Lee Spring Army. Put a Lee Spring Army in the chat. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Cliff H, who throws in a 20, and thank you, Cliff, very much for that support. He says, Marmot, please, and the Fly is a Ruski propagandist attempting to recruit Marmot to volunteer as an A-50 crew member, and Marmot is aware of recent events. So that makes Marmot a killer.
Dang. Marmot is Marmot is absolutely on a homicide streak out there. Someone needs to keep an eye on Marmot. But beyond that, let me really quickly make sure that I can get this correct and make sure to do this right, Matthew, because we all know there's a certain thing that has to always be done right on this channel when we do it. Cliff H asked for something very specific, and we've got to make sure to present it the right way, the right time, and in the right manner to make sure.
This is some good stalling right here.
Yeah, to make sure.
When you're stalling, but you ain't got no time for. Wait a minute. When you're rushing, but you ain't got no time for stalling.
Man, when you're rushing for food and there ain't no time for stalling. But nevertheless, boom! Oh, hello there!
Hello there. I'm the Marmot. Hello.
Would you like to fly?
A Ruski fly.
Aw, man. Aw, man. I'm suffering. Put me out of my misery. What the hell? What the hell kind of comment is that? What the? But anyway,
shut up and make me a hot dog.
Someone get this man a hot dog. His stats. But beyond that, I absolutely love.
Down to the Fly. Hey, hello, Marmot. Would you like to fly in an A-50?
Oh, there's no follow-up to that? Like, it's like there's no follow-up.
I was waiting for you to do it. The Mark was speechless. He said, the hell you say, governor?
It just went, you what, mate? You what, mate?
I'm out of words, mate. I'm out of words. Are you trying to kill me or something?
It's not a threat. It's not a freaking threat, governor. Oh, God. Honestly, the silence was even more funny than anything I could have ever said. It just went, you want to get in an A-50? And it just went... Man, that's actually kind of, that was
What'd you
actually
say,
really,
Governor?
that was
What'd you
actually,
say, Governor?
you what? It's funny. Oh man. But Marvin is aware of recent events. That's how he was so speechless. But beyond that, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Cliff H. And thank you for giving us a moment to have one of the funniest times we've had on stream all night, which is that failed skit that honestly was more funny because it failed than
Man,
whatever
you're
we were
supposed to
doing.
play along with the skit, man. Jeez, you went quiet on me. The Marmot didn't say a damn word, man. Come on.
Dude, it was funnier though. It really was funnier than anything I could have ever come up with. It's just the raw silence of looking at the Marmot and it's just not doing anything. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for support, Cliff H. And also, by the way, 1 second, copy image. 1 second, y'all. Oh, dagnabbit. Wrong one. Hang on, y'all. Hang on. Hold tight. Hold tight. Let me go over here. Hang on, everyone. Hold tight. I'm doing something in the background, so that way we can do something kind of cool, kind of neat, you know? You know what I mean, Governor?
Kinda.
Kind of neat. It's kind of cool. And Control V. There we go. And let's see. Boom, bada boom. Boom, bada boom, bada boom. And there we go. And we're going to align that just right. And then we're going to go back here. And we're going to change that to that. And there we go. So everything I was doing in the background was so that way I could put this up on screen because that is gorgeous. So whenever anyone says long live the Lee Spring Army, I'm going to throw this thing up on screen. I had to get that ready because I was like, you know what? That's a perfect time to do it. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again, Cliff H, for the support. I hope you got a good laugh out of what we did right there because I know I did. I almost blew a lung out like a 9mm. It blows the lung clean out the body. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again, Cliff H, for being a channel legend, an old guard, and helping this channel to keep on running. Oh, I know that. But anyways, we're going to be getting rid of Martin.
Oh, hello there, Governor. Could
Dang
you please spare a plum?
Would you like a plum, Governor? Would you like a plum? But anyways, with that.
Governor, could I interest you in a plum or a hot dog? And the hot dog will have extra relish on it. And it will be served by a fellow who used to drive trucks. Is it okay?
That is
No.
not okay. I demand a refund. I will be served a hot dog by anything but that.
Well, okay.
just pure silence.
I don't know where to go with that.
Well, I mean, but
Okay.
with that, I hope we address that well. Thanks, and thank you once again for support. And also, I see a lot of people going flexing it's about the flag, and I know, right? Because y'all, we've actually decided something about the flag that is going to really excite y'all. This isn't going to just be the limited edition flag. The limited edition flags are going to be the ones we sign. We're going to sign a very limited number of them. But this is just going to be the LSA flag, the gold and white eagle, instead of the solid white one, because behind the scenes we just decided this one is so drippy, like it will dominate. So, but that's what we decided. So this will be the LSA flag for eternity at this point, is this one.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad it is, man. I'm glad.
Man, I'm glad it is. I mean, I gotta say, it is nice, and I love it. I gotta say, it's a beautiful flag. And anyone who says anything otherwise is nothing more than a pro-Russian, rabble-rousing clickbaiter who only does things for views. Only for views, because they're so desperate, because their videos will get such a small little viewership, and they get such a tiny bit of subscribers per month, that they gotta do anything to try and make sure to get some kind of traction, including attacking us one night, and then another channel the next night, and then another one after that. Or do they even cover the Ukraine war anymore, or are they just entirely about trying to be a rage baiter on the internet? Those days and ages passed 10 years ago, and that sad loser needs to go get a real job, because apparently they suck at doing YouTube. But anyways, with that, hope I addressed that well, because I know many people love to hear that kind of stuff. Put an LSA in the chat. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $20 super chat from Badger Bro.
Hey,
And
what's
thank
up,
you very
bro?
much, Badger Bro, for that support. And he is a bro of the Badgers. I'm telling you what, the Honey Badger, Stoffel, all those good critters. He says, Enforcer Matt, I'm so glad you were able to visit my great state of Texas, and you didn't get food poisoning from In-N-Out Burger, since it's considered an invasive species, because Texas is the birthplace of the Whataburger. Oh man, I'm telling you what, I literally was dying to get to an In-N-Out Burger so bad because I've seen them on YouTube for so long. I'm like, what is the rage about this burger? And to be honest with you, rather than it being somewhat cheap, like $5 to eat there for the meal. It wasn't a phenomenal burger. It was good, but not anything too crazy. And the fries were just good as well. So I wasn't like overly impressed by it, but it was good. But Whataburger, we have those around here in Alabama as well. You can't beat Whataburger. I like it better. But obviously you're paying double the price for it, but it is better. But yes, I honestly miss Texas a little bit. I was only able to be out there for a day or two, but it was super fun and a very nice state you have. Dallas, and especially North Dallas, is really kicking it. I like it a lot. But thank you very much for your support. And Enforcer, what say you?
I have to say this, Badger Bro. I'm so happy to hear that you are a big fan of the state of Texas. And I'm happy to hear that Matthew likes Texas too. He misses it a little bit. He actually feels a little homesick for a state he's never lived in and called home. But beyond that, I didn't get to try In-N-Out Burger, but Matthew seemed that he was like, yeah, it's all right. But beyond that, though, I want to say this really quickly. I love Alabama. I think Alabama is the greatest state in the country, in my opinion, because I live here, and it's just really nice. Some people kind of get a little bit confused because some people think that because you love a place, you can't say anything bad about it. No, I know Alabama's flaws and faults, and I'll be more than fine to mention those and mention every other state's, but I do it because I care. I don't do it because I hate a state. I just do it because I know what kind of faults each state has. But still, there is a massive gem in each state that makes them special and unique. Just like for Alabama, there is a whole bunch of things that makes Alabama a really nice place. There are a lot of things that makes Texas an incredibly nice place. But beyond that, I gotta say, Badger Bro, thank you so much for being one of our Texans here in the chat. There are a lot of Texans who watch this show, and thank you so much for sharing with us a little bit of burger history from the state of Texas, because Whataburger is born from Texas. But another thing that's born from Texas is, interesting enough, I believe Taco Bell. And let me make sure to pull that up. First, Taco Bell. And let me go make sure. Let's see. Let's see. Wait a minute, hang on. The first one was opened in California, but it serves Tex-Mex fast food. That makes no sense. No sense at all. Hang on. Yeah, it was. It was actually in California, huh? I don't like that. I thought it was
What, Taco Bell?
Yeah, because Taco Bell's category of food is not Mexican food. It's Tex-Mex fast food, which is a mix of Texan and Mexican food mixed together, and that's what their food is. That's why it's not Mexican food, and anyone who ever thought that was wrong. And Taco Bell does not advertise their food as Mexican food. They advertise it as Tex-Mex fast food. But that makes no sense because they're actually from California.
Else. Yeah, I thought it was somewhere else as well. But also, another topic of food here I'm seeing in the live chats, people are repping Five Guys. Five Guys is probably the best burger out there, but for the price of it, I would have to knock it down like below Whataburger, because it's not worth $10 for a Five Guys burger, not whatsoever. And, we've gotten used to inflated prices these days, but like $10 for a burger, I mean, even with inflation, that's a little bit insane. Like, I can't even bring myself to go to Five Guys very often because of that. Like, it's every once in a while. It's like Five Guys has become like eating out at a fancy restaurant or something for like getting fast food. And I don't know. Like, I feel like it's price gouging to an extent, but it's a really good burger though.
I'm not gonna lie, it is kind of price gouging. And another weird thing about Five Guys burgers is that they're huge, but they never hold you over. Like, you're starving like just a few hours after eating those things. I don't know what it is about a Five Guys burger, but they're really expensive. You get a lot of fries though, and the fries aren't bad. But at the same time, though, no matter how many fries you eat and how much of the burger you eat, you always end up just being starving a few hours later. I feel like even like a McDonald's hamburger holds you over better than Five Guys does. But I'm seeing everyone coming out to represent their colors with the burger restaurants. Some people are saying Culver's is pretty good. Culver's is all right. We have one in Birmingham now. It's all right, but there's not really a lot of flavor in it. I guess you really have to customize them, and that's just something I'm not used to, because usually it's all, kind of like pre-put onto the burger, except for Five Guys where you do customize everything, but it's online. But I mean, Culver's is really good for their desserts, I think. Like, they have some really good dessert stuff and some really interesting sides that are pretty good. But the burgers themselves, I mean, they're pretty good, but they're not the greatest. In my honest opinion, I'd have to tell y'all, my favorite burger place is actually a local burger chain here indigenous to the city of Birmingham in Alabama, which is called Hamburger Heaven. And if y'all haven't had those, those are what I would say the peak of fast food burgers. They are juicy. The meat isn't overcooked, but it's also not undercooked. The additions that they put on are good. The burgers are always hot. And their fries, while they're not incredibly large portion of fries, the fries are perfectly cooked. I mean, like, they're crisp, they're not greasy. They're kind of like the thicker cut fries, if you know what I mean. They're really good. But those are my favorite burgers. But you can only find those here in the city of Birmingham. And that's also why I love Alabama, because we have Hamburger Heaven in Birmingham, and it is truly one of the best hamburger places, in my opinion. Repping the small guys.
Texas. Oh, go ahead.
I'm repping the small guys, folks, because as the enforcer and as your president in 2040, I'm going to make sure that not just big business succeeds in this country. I'm going to make sure that those little guys succeed in this country. We're going to make a blend where the big guys and the little guys can live together in harmony, and every single person in this country can make $1 and live that American dream, baby. Vote for me in 2040. But anyways, Matthew, what do you got to say?
Wait a minute. What was the topic you were saying a minute ago? Like, my thought left my head.
I was talking about the local burger chain, Hamburger Heaven, and then you said in Texas.
Yeah. In Texas, like, I didn't get to go there because our trip was cut a little bit short because of some stuff in the background, which we can't get into right now. But the Texas barbecue places and stuff, I really wanted to try so bad. I hate I wasn't able to try it after driving all the way out to Dallas, and then something came up. But they have a lot of really good barbecue places out there that look really good and delicious. That even Alabama doesn't have that. And man, we got to go back out to Texas sometime and like meet up with all the Texas LSA viewers or something, because that would be super cool.
Dude, it would be cool. You know something, y'all, that I was actually talking about Matthew today about is I said once we reach a certain subscriber number, which I'm kind of thinking that once we reach about 300,000 subscribers, we'll probably start doing this. Is every quarter of every year, we're going to end up having like a fan meet somewhere in the country. So like the first place I was thinking was maybe Atlanta, Georgia as the first, and then we would go and pick big cities throughout the country to go to, like Dallas, or New York City, or somewhere like that. Places that most of y'all probably would be around. And then we get to say hey to y'all, shake y'all's hands, take pictures with y'all, chit chat with all of y'all. I thought that would be really cool. I don't know if we'll ever get around to actually doing something like that, but if we could ever get to actually meet our amazing Elite Spring Army members, like all of y'all here in the chat, it would be incredible to do something like that. I would love to be able to go and meet all of y'all and talk to all of y'all face to face and actually get to see the faces behind the Elite Spring Army that have been with us for over 2 years now. I think that would be incredible. And that's one of the few things that I would actually spend time and effort away from the streams and running the YouTube channel itself to be able to go around and meet all of y'all, because all of y'all are the reason why this has been so worthwhile and why it's been possible in the first place. But with that, I hope that does address all of that fairly well. And with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Badger Bro, and I hope we were able to address that little talk about burgers very well. But also, thank you once again for being from the amazing state of Texas. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to that mom who puts in a $20 donation and said, you already said it, call your family, call your family. And I'm glad to see y'all flourishing and doing what you love. And thank you very much, that mom. And you came in right at the right moment because we just mentioned that earlier. So thank you very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you so much for the support, that mom, and helping this channel to keep on running. And you already know it, that mom. Call your family, because you got to call your family. You got to love them. I mean, if you can. Some folks can't. There's things going on back there, and I get that, because not everything's going to be perfect. But if you do love your family, you just don't talk to them much, make sure to call them and let you know that you care about them and love them. Who knows when the last time you'll ever see them again is. And it's always important to let the folks you care about most in life know that you actually care and keep up to date with them, because you only live once, and one day your clock is going to run out, and one day the folks you love, their clock is going to run out too. And who knows when that will be, who knows whenever it'll be, but at least you'll know that you love them and they loved you, and everyone knew that before that time came, or when that clock stopped ticking. But nevertheless, thank you so much for bringing that up, that mom. And also, it is amazing to know that we are flourishing and doing what we love, and we're going to keep doing it until the war ends. Hell or high water, we will, because we've been dedicated to this for over 2 years. I know now that this is certainly my passion and my dream job, especially after going to law school for a semester and a half. I found that that's certainly not the place for me. I'm much more happier doing something like this, and that my future lies in getting to talk to all of y'all and tell y'all about the news of what's going on around the world. And so with that, thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running, and thank you once again for being here with us, Stepmom, again tonight and enjoying the stream. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and we have real quick a question from Effed Up Creations. He said, what's the update with the store, the merch store that is? And the merch store is in the works as we speak. The storefront is finished, and it's on our good old platform here, which is not Teespring this time. It's a store operated by ourselves, which is a whole new adventure for us. But the samples of the merch are on order, and we're getting all the final preparations underway to get that done. This time we're looking into packaging and all that good stuff because we're not using a third party to send it out. We're actually going to be signing the flags that we're selling on our store and packaging them ourselves. We got all kinds of really cool like custom packaging to go with it as well. So this time it's not going to be a random box showing up from Teespring or something. It's going to be a custom branded Enforcer packaging that's going to look really sick, and y'all are going to be impressed by it. And I think y'all are going to be very happy with the final product because that flag came together super well thanks to Pterosaur's design. And I'm very satisfied with the way this is going. But it's still about a couple of weeks out, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, because the sample processes will take probably about 2 more weeks. And then we have to actually get all kinds of tax information in line and all that good stuff. Got to collect sales taxes, which is something that I forgot to think about a while back. So we had to kind of look into that. But it's really actually kind of fun to me to like set this all up. The merch store is like a fun process. I like it. But Enforcer, what say you about that question?
And I gotta say, it is a very fun thing. We absolutely love the merchandising, and we're very happy to get that out to all of y'all. Of course, this is going to be the flag that's going to be out to all of y'all. It's going to be a 3-foot by 5-foot flag, so it's going to be your normal kind of a flag, standard size flag. I think that's called, let's see, I think that's called a post flag, as far as the size goes, a 3-foot by 5-foot flag. Or a post flag is actually a little bit bigger than that. But beyond that, it's going to be your standard flag size that you would see anywhere around the world. And it's going to be so cool. You know something that I just thought, Matthew? Let me go flag waving gift mail. Let me go see if we can actually get something done here real quick. I'm trying to check this real quick. Nah, we're not doing that. That's going to take too much time. I was going to see if we could insert the picture of the flag here into a flag waving thing and see what it will look like up on a flagpole. But we'll wait to do that later. Maybe we'll put that on Patreon or something. But beyond that, this is the flag. This is going to be the first merch item on the merch store. It's going to be a limited edition run with our signatures on it. We're probably going to sign it up here in the top left corner or down in the bottom corner of the flag somewhere. Probably in the top, though, where it'll be flying, because that is going to be so freaking cool to actually have a Lee Spring Army flag. There are so many groups out there at this point. Actually, there's not really a lot of them when I think about it. There's really only one that kind of has their symbology already in line, and they kind of took most of it from an organization that already exists. I wanted to make sure the Lee Spring Army had its own kind of special symbology that would be unique to it, that would make sure that this community survives as an individual, completely separate organization from everything else on throughout the rest of time and history and space until Matthew and me eventually move on from this or die, one or the other, and probably dying will come first rather than moving on from this, because we'll probably be doing this all our lives. But beyond that, however, one thing that is the reason why I'd want to do that, to give you a little bit of an explanation, because a lot of people are like, why didn't you hop on that trend where everyone else just kind of joined this other community? The reason why is because I don't really trust other communities completely. I actually have a very low amount of trust, especially when it's been coming around to dealing with other people in the pro-Ukraine world. Not to say that they're all bad people or anything. It's just that I don't really have trust that they're going to do the things that I would be on board with. Like, for example, if we joined everyone else, like everyone else went and hopped onto the same bandwagon, we would pretty much be forced into becoming a political thing, talking about domestic politics in line with talking about Ukraine, which is something I do not back up at all. I want to make sure that this community, since we're putting in so much time and effort into building this channel up and working on it, and we're the only ones who do it, and we're the only ones who get to talk to y'all, I want to make sure that this channel pretty much remains separate from everyone and everything else, so that way we can make sure to keep in line with what kind of vision I originally had when I started out with this channel over 2.5 years ago, which is to make sure that we remain non-political and we cover the news the way I would want to cover it, instead of having to try and kind of conform to what everyone else would want the news to be covered like. So that's why we went and made the LSA instead of just, lumping ourselves as like an affiliate into some other giant community, because those giant communities have gone ways that I did not like to see. And I'm glad that we ended up having our own thing, because honestly, I'm very happy with it. And I think that with this flag, everyone's going to be really happy with it, because it's a cool looking flag. I mean, this is actually something, Matthew, that could stand in for an armed forces flag or even a national flag, because it's that good looking.
I like it too. I think it looks really good.
I mean, it looks great. I mean, this is, you just can't deny it. It is a great looking flag all the way around. But with that, still, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and real quick, I do have a question for the audience here. Someone has brought this up, so I wanted to see what everyone else thinks about that. So let's see here. Yeah, yes, or no. Let's see. Hold on, let me type this up. Lettering, yes, I want the lettering. All right, so here's the question going up, and feel free to let me know what you think on this poll, because I'm curious to see what the result will be. But with that, we're moving on to our next super chat, which goes to Straight Edge Soldier, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support. He says, as a Texan, I must say, yee! And I can't stress this next part enough. Oh. And I'm telling you what, we got all the Texans coming out tonight. The LSA Texans are coming out in strong numbers here. And like I said, I love your state. Texas is a nice state, and y'all got a very proud people in your state as well. Like the pride for Texas amongst the people there is incredible. And I'm not going to say I hate Alabama, because I did grow up here. It is my home state. I'm not a huge fan of it. But it does have its good parts and bad parts, just like Texas has some good parts and bad parts. But I think the good in Texas might be a little bit more than Alabama has. But it's just a very proud state, and I like that aspect of it. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to say, Straight Edge Soldier, Matthew is right about Texas being a proud state. It's probably one of the proudest states in the country about their identity. And it has a good founding for that, because for a short while, it was a completely independent country, which is wild to think about, because they had their own currency for a short while. They also had their own navy, and they also had their own army. And of course, the flag of the state of Texas is actually the flag of the nation of Texas as it existed before it was annexed by the United States, I think in 1836. But beyond that, it is really cool to think about Texan history. It's a really cool state in the United States. And not only that, it is really cool to know that folks like you, Straight Edge Soldier, Badger Bro, Hoodoo Texas, which has Texas in his name, amongst many other folks, are proud Texans and really love their state. I love to see that people love where they're from, whether it be Texas, Alabama, any other state in the nation, or even other countries like Germany and the Netherlands, and all the people who are from around the world here on this channel. And when they throw in support, they always say, and hello from so-and-so place, like hello from Latvia, and hello from the Netherlands, and hello from the UK. I love to see that people really love where they're from, because there's so much for everyone to be proud about, for their own nations, their own states, their own cities, because everyone is always working so hard and so well to try and make their states, their cities, and their nations proud. And it's always wonderful to see that folks from Texas really do believe in that and are really proud of their state. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And yeah! And with that, we are on to the next one.
And it looks like the majority of folks believe the lettering is the good thing. So I would have to say, personally, me, I like the lettering. But we'll consider maybe in the future having one without it, like maybe a simplistic or minimalist looking flag design, maybe. But I think for the first run, we should keep the lettering. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, I like the lettering, because I took the lettering off, and I mean, it looks all right, but it does look like there's something missing at that point.
Yeah, there does. Or it does. Not there does, but it does look like it's a little bit too simplistic.
Because something I was thinking is, and hear me out on this, y'all, we might eventually send out little thank you letters. Like if you get stuff from the merch store and you're one of our channel legends who has been here forever and we're, always happy to see and everything, I might actually make individualized letter to say, hey, thank you so much for being around forever. You know, it's been incredible. And I'm going to get a ink stamp of this eagle, and then stamp it onto the letter, or it may be like a letter header or something like that, this eagle itself without the LSA attached, and it'll just be printed onto something that we mail out. Because this eagle here, the honey badger was incredible, and it's still going to be a permanent symbol of the Lee Spring Army. And the marmot is kind of an unofficial symbol of the Lee Spring Army at this point, and most likely working on becoming an official one. But this eagle is pretty much going to be the go-to symbol of the Lee Spring Army from here forward, because it's a very official one and it looks pretty serious when you see it. You know, it's something that could actually represent an organization and very professionally. And so, going off of that, I'm wanting to try and start incorporating this LSA flag or LSA eagle into pretty much everything, not just as being a flag, but being a symbol for the Lee Spring Army. So I hope that does address that quite well with kind of what my plans are for the flag and the eagle itself, because there will be a lot of versions of this eagle where the letters are not there. The letters will be there on the flag, but for most everything else, the letters are probably not going to be there along with the eagle. But with that, I hope that does address that very well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a $10 super chat from BC Skyman, the channel legend, along with Heather Fitzgibbon, who's also a channel legend, and also Sarah A. And they said, keep up the terrific work, guys, and the job as well. And thank you, Sarah, BC, and Heather for that support, as always, and always supporting the channel. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you to Heather Fitzgibbon, LSA, BC Skyman, both of y'all, channel legends and old guards. Thank y'all so much. And Sarah A., who, just like BC Skyman and Heather Fitzgibbon, is a channel legend and an old guard. And thank y'all, all three of y'all, for saying the same thing. Keep up the great work. And thank you to all of y'all for enjoying this great work and supporting us and helping us to keep this thing running. Because y'all support helps to keep our work possible, helps to keep our lights on, and helps the Lee Spring Army's gears to keep on grinding and to keep on being oiled. And so thank you to all of y'all so much once again. I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Junebug72, puts in a $10 donation and says, hello, and what's your position on Poland's response to Ukraine importing grains? And what is your prediction in reference to Macron following through with troop deployments to Ukraine? And good stream. Slav Ukraine.
And thank you so much, Junebug72, for your support and helping this channel to keep on running. Now, to be honest with you, what's happening with Poland, I'm a little bit lost, because on one stance, the president of Poland, Duda, is saying, we ought to be friends with Ukraine, and we ought to help them out. And then today, the prime minister of Poland said, we're shutting off all trade with Ukraine. We're stopping everything from crossing the border. So I have absolutely no idea what the official Polish governmental stance is at the moment, because the president and the prime minister are saying two completely opposite things right now. So sadly, I'm going to have to get a little bit more clarity on that before I speak on that well, because whatever I'm going to say has about a 50-50% chance of being wrong. But beyond that, Macron following through with troop deployments in Ukraine, probably the chances of that happening are pretty slim, because it was more so of a mention of him saying that it's not off the table, which is showing that the French are becoming on a governmental level more friendly to the idea of sending forces into Ukraine, and even making it sound like it wouldn't be that bad of a thing. But I don't think they'll ever actually follow through on that unless if it had a blessing from the United States, as well as Germany and the UK, because Germany, the United Kingdom, Germany, and France are really the four large powers that run NATO for the most part. And it's their decision-making processes that kind of guide everyone else in what they do. So if France is on board, but America and the UK aren't, they pretty much kind of veto France, even if France and Germany wanted to send forces into Ukraine. Really, when it comes down to it, as far as NATO spending goes and how the alliance is structured, which is really off of spending power as far as the armed forces is concerned, America is pretty much the main shareholder in what kind of decisions are made and who goes what and who what does where in regards to NATO. And so if the United States doesn't want Western forces in Ukraine, they could just say, you're not doing that, and France will not do that. So going off of that, I think the realistic idea of them going into Ukraine is pretty low. I'd say 10% or less. But once again, make sure to take it with a grain of salt, because I don't know exactly everything I'm talking about, and I could be wrong. You know, there's always a time that I can be wrong, Junebug72, and I could be wrong on something like this. Maybe France just goes in and does not care what America wants to say or what America thinks about that, but usually they do. And so that's what I'm kind of working off of to answer that question. But still, thank you so much for enjoying the stream, and Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. And with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to David Millsaps, who throws in a $10 donation. Thank you very much, good sir, for that support. He says, what will be the responded of the Europeans in Transnistria is reinforced by Russia, and will this cause the support for Ukraine to increase, as they may recognize this as the domino effect starting?
I think it would be a good argument for support to Ukraine to increase, but the thing about that is that from what I can understand, the arguments against supporting Ukraine is that Europe isn't America, so we shouldn't care at all. And I'm not going to go into the rabbit hole of why I think that kind of a stance doesn't make any sense, because I think I've done that like a million times through the channel history and I ran it into the ground. But I don't know if that would actually make people care a little bit more, because the people who don't care would not care even if the entirety of Europe was at war with Russia. They would just act like it was not our problem, and act like it's the 1920s or the 1930s again, and we could just stick our heads in the ground and not worry about it. So I don't know if that would really change those folks' minds, going off of what I've heard them say. But let's see. I think the Europeans would certainly respond in some kind of a way. I know Romania would be greatly concerned, because now this would be a Russian armed conflict right on their border. I mean, Ukraine is on their border, but Moldova in this conflict would just be dozens of miles away from Romania's borders. So to answer that, I would have to say this would probably be one of the most serious things that the Europeans would be looking at. Once again, the United States could kind of hold NATO back and stop them from really doing anything directly, but I think at that point, some European countries would consider this to be such a threat to their security, they may act without worrying about what NATO's overall concern or strategy would be in that instance. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion, because that would be my answer to those two questions. And once again, David Millsaps, thank you for your support, and thank you for being here forever. You have been here forever. I saw you in the live chat when I was on the day 4 stream a while ago, because I was looking at who was all there that night, and you were one of the names that popped up towards the later end of the stream in the live chat. So you have been here for literal ages, ever since the channel blew up, and I got to thank you for still being here with us and supporting this channel and asking really good questions. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat is going to go to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who's a long-time channel legend. I love saying that name. He puts in a 10 and says, for 2 entire years, 150 corrugated iron Ukrainian flags have stood tall on highways and main roads around the South Island of New Zealand, and they even get fresh coats of paint.
That is really cool. The South Island of New Zealand. Big place, by the way. Huge, actually. It's one of the biggest. It's one of the greatest, biggest islands. They say my island's the biggest. It's the greatest. But nevertheless, wow, how cool is that? And also, this place looks really neat. Like, my mom wants to go here one day and see this place. Maybe one day we will be able to, but I have a feeling that if I ever said we really would, it would be a bluff. But beyond that, but another thing, one thing beyond that I'd like to say is that I feel like the wildlife of New Zealand is something, at least on the bright side, that wouldn't gore you. But, on the whole other side of things, there's I'm trying to find another one to make a joke. There's not really any more. I think I ran out. But beyond that, however, that is really cool to know, and I really would love to come here to New Zealand. And let's check out what this looks like right here, Matthew. What does this look like?
Ooh, looks like Texas.
It kind of does.
Yeah, it kind of looks like Texas. I like it here. This is a 21 Coldstream Road. That's a nice place.
Nice place. And it is so weird. Wherever British people go, they always bring like a kind of British look with them. You know what I mean? Because that kind of looked a bit like the lowlands in England, a little bit.
Yeah, something about driving through here makes you want to say, hello, Governor.
Oh, hello there.
Can I have some more taxes, please? Or would you like to go over to Christchurch for the day?
Let's see here. Well, let's look at this river, the Ricala River. Wow. Oh my God. Wow, that is great. Dude, that really is like a British river. That's like the, I forget the name of it, but it's down in southeastern England, kind of near Bath, maybe, or Bristol. I forgot the name. It's not the Severn River.
There's enough water left in this river to boil the hot dog man's hot dogs, eh?
No, there's not enough for that. There's not enough for that. But wow, that is wild. I guess the river fills up at certain times of the year, probably during like the spring when all of the ice is melting up on the mountains. But that is super cool to look at. Really cool, actually. But still, let's move on into Christchurch and let's check out this place because I wonder what this looks like. So, someone's about to bring up something that happened here. Yep, I'm not gonna cover that. But still, beyond that, ooh. Well, that's a little rough looking. That's a little rough. It looks like a building's falling apart in the middle of downtown. Well, let's go out here into the suburbs. Let's see what it looks like out here in the burbs.
The burbs.
Oh, it looks really nice, actually. Looks like
looks alright.
Looks like Britain, kind of, until it's kind of like Britain again. Oh, look at this. This is the Ethnic Market, International Food Store. So this is like, I guess they're like a world market or something like that. But overall,
I'll be honest, it looks alright. It looks alright. I mean, nothing
aight.
to write home about, but
let's see.
well, those looked okay. That looked okay over there.
I think Auckland's really like the mover and shaker of New Zealand. So let's go up here. Let's take a look at Auckland. Ike! You knew I was about to do that, man. As soon as you said that, it sounded too...
I knew it.
But this place doesn't look that bad. This is really nice, actually. I gotta say. I like it. I like it. Very cool. But still, with that, thank you so much once again for the support. AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, thank you for being one of our New Zealand viewers. And thank you for letting us take a quick moment to look around the beautiful country of New Zealand. A really cool place, really pretty place. And hopefully one day we will be able to travel there ourselves and take a look at this beautiful country. But with that, thank you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are even on to the next one.
All right. And also, I saw Junebug72 say, do you enjoy the process of crunching numbers, Enforcer Matt? Or isn't it more about getting the desired answers? There are many who sincerely enjoy the crunching process as much as the final product. And I will say on this case, like I've never like set up an e-commerce store like from the front to the back like this. And I've had to do a lot of learning on it as well. I actually enjoy the process of it. Like I'm kind of shocked. Like I have enjoyed setting it up. I thought it was going to be a burden, but it's actually quite fun. So I would say I like the crunching part. The crunching of the store is quite crunchy. But with that being said, we're moving on to our next super chat, which goes to The Planet is Dying. And man, there's no need to be that dramatic. I'm telling you. They put in a 10 and said, thank you guys, and you're doing a great job.
And thank you so much. The planet is dying. Oh my god. But beyond the joke on the name, thank you so much for enjoying our work, and thank you for saying it's a great job. We try our best to put out the news every day, and I'm glad that you appreciate it. And thank you once again for supporting it, so that way we can make it possible. But with that, we are on to the next one.
Excuse me. And the next one goes to Badger.
What the hell?
I was trying to hide it, man. You cut your sentence off too quick, and I was yawning. But this one goes to the Badger Bro. Yet again, he puts in a 10 and says, Enforcers Texans are proud because our GDP is bigger than Russia's. Other states are lucky we don't invade them. In other words, Badger Bro said, we're proud because we're rich. And I tell you what, the Texan economy seems to be doing extremely well. The house prices are insane out there. And everything seems to be booming. There's tons of restaurants. You literally, like in Dallas, like you couldn't run out of things to do in that city. There's so many things to do. And that seems to be the way across the entire state. I just like it so much out there in Texas. I got to tell you, I like Texas. I would like to make Texas the new LSA headquarters. I really would. But, Enforcer, what say you?
I got to say, huge shout out to the Texans. Absolutely dogging on them Russians. With the GDP numbers, Texas has a GDP of nearly $2.4 trillion as a state. Meaning, and let me check this out because I think this. Oh, nope. Actually, they're not that high. Let me go check something else. 1 second, I gotta go check this because. All right, so, Texas has a GDP bigger than Russia's, bigger than Canada's, bigger than Brazil's, bigger than Italy's. They would be behind France if they were an independent country at around $2.4 trillion, which is mental when you really think about that in perspective. It's like, that is a huge economy inside of Texas. New York State is actually very similar, I believe, but let me check that. New York GDP. Oh, actually, New York State is just a little bit behind by several hundred million at around almost a flat $2 trillion GDP in 2022. So very interesting. Texas may be one of the largest economies in the United. I think it is the largest economy in the United States behind California. But that is really wicked. And that's funny to think that the state of Texas alone makes more money annually than all of Russia does. And there's hardly anyone that lives in Texas compared to Russia. I don't know the exact population figures, but you know, we can find that out some other. What? Say what?
Huh?
Oh, I thought you said something. I heard from your microphone. I was like, what? I was like, what? Say what? But let's see here. Oh, and look at this. They actually cut it down by city. So Dallas and Houston make up the large majority of the state's GDP, pretty much almost 50% of it with those two cities combined. And then Fort Worth, Austin, and let's see, San Antonio make up another like 25%. And then the non-metro Texas areas and some other Texas metropolitan areas make up pretty much the rest of the GDP. So Dallas and Houston are the places to be if you want to be in the money inside of the state of Texas. But beyond that, really cool, Badger Bro, to think about that. And it's sad to think that the Russians are that pitiful of a country that the great state of Texas just is mogging on them every day. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have one more Texan to be added to the list. It's Melinda Grifford Vaughn, who throws in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Melinda, for that support. And you know, something I've realized over time is a lot of the channel legends are from Texas on the channel. We've got Hoodoo Texas in here. We've got Melinda Grifford Vaughn. We've got all the Texans in the chat. And I got to tell you, we really need to move the LSA headquarters there. Enforcer, we need to move to the headquarters over there, man. We got to do it.
Oh, get out of here. Alabama's just fine.
Do it, man.
It's just fine, man. It's just fine.
We don't have a choice. They're making it too appealing. We got to go.
Well, hey, if all of our Texan viewers are willing to build an LSA headquarters, like an entire like massive like Pentagon type complex in Texas, we'll go there. But until
no, we're not trying to replicate Waco.
No, I'm not saying Waco.
It's just like what the hell are you building a compound. No compounds in Texas. Not happening.
Hey, man, I think. Oh man, they're a cult. It's all coming together now. It's all coming together.
There's a cult of Matt in the chat, and the enforcer's talking about building a compound in Texas.
Next thing you know, there's trouble. There's trouble. But beyond that, thank you so much for being another Texan, Melinda Grifford Vaughn. You're really selling Matthew on moving west, young man. Move west, young man. Move west. But beyond that, it is really cool to know that so many of y'all really are from Texas. That is actually crazy. And I gotta say, I think if I had to pick a city in the state of Texas to make our headquarters out of, it'd be Waco. Let's go. I'm just kidding. It would not be Waco because Waco is associated with wackos. I'm just kidding. I hate that they got that kind of a reputation. But beyond that, if we really had to pick a place in Texas to make the headquarters out of, I'd kind of be a little bit hard pressed because it most likely would be in Dallas. But you know, I don't know. We really have to see if we ever seriously did look into that. But still, thank you so much once again for support, Melinda Grifford Vaughn. I hope that does address that well, and thank you for letting us know that you're another Texan on the list. You know, man, there are some people out there in the world starting to find out that there's a lot of LSA Army members that are in Texas, and they must be quaking in their boots. But still, with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Andy L, who throws in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Andy, for fighting through the YouTube glitches to put in that super chat because he was absolutely struggling to get YouTube to work right. So thank you very much. He says, long live the LSA and the Republic of Texas. Hey, it's another Texas viewer. Let's go.
Let's get it, baby. And thank you so much, Andy L, for being a longtime member of the Least Spring Army. And not only that, a citizen of the Republic of Texas. Let's go! Oh, wait, hang on. That's the wrong one. It's like the Yellow Rose of Texas or something. But still, beyond that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running because folks like you make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Hoodoo Texas, who throws in a $10 donation, and we have yet another Texas viewer. It's a channel legend. He says Belgium has pledged 200 million euros to, and excuse me, Good Lord, let me start over. Belgium has pledged 200 million euros and Netherlands 100 million euros to buy the 800,000 rounds that the Czechs have found other countries coming around. 1.5 billion needed, and quick delivery could happen.
Hopefully so, and it looks like a lot of European countries, from what I've heard, that's exactly on point. Hoodoo are trying to work around the artillery shell shortage, and hopefully this one will work, because apparently just everyone sending their stuff the way they can, like they were planning on, just didn't work, and Macron pointed that out, Zelensky pointed that out, and now, if for some reason, Belgium is pretty much going to kind of be trying to carry the load from the Czechs. Huge shout out to the Czechs again, cool country. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to be possible. And thank you for sharing with us a little bit more about the European artillery logistics news that I didn't really talk about much on the channel at all over the past few days. But with that, thank you once again. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in a $7 donation and says, did you know that razzle dazzle is used by zebras' stripes to confuse predators? And you're the best. You're just the best.
And thank you so much, Margaret Hemsley. You're the best, Margaret. You're the best. And also, razzle dazzle is a thing that zebras do have. Matthew, have you ever seen a zebra? I haven't. Let's go pull them up.
Oh yeah, I've seen a zebra.
What the hell do you mean? I've never. Wait a minute. They got the sound here. Hang on. Hold up. Let me bring this over here so y'all know I'm clicking on sound. All right, cool.
Where'd they get that sound from, I wonder?
I have no idea. Dude, when you just get done cooking up hot dogs, your channel's dying. Okay, it's a different one. but still, but that
Yeah. It's like a toy or something. You pull it and you get a different sound every time.
But anyways, let's check it out. Look at that. That's whack.
Man, zebra looks like he's trying to square up or something. Why has it got his head down like that?
Man, why is his stripes so thin? Like, this one's got such large stripes. This one really is whipping out the old razzle dazzle. Like, that one's like, what the hell is it? But beyond that, these are really cool animals. I've, like, honestly never seen one for years. Like, I've never found one and looked at a picture of one. But they're actually pretty cool looking. It's kind of like a...
Yeah.
What?
Oh
my God!
182 came in with a hot one.
God.
It sounds like the hot dog man's mom. I read that. I didn't understand what I was reading the first time. I read it the second time. I was like, oh my God! It just hit like a ton of bricks.
Oh man! And you know what's even worse? None of his mothers even talk to him anymore. That's what's even worse about it. Oh man!
Yikes!
But anyway, testing.
We got DDoS, man! A DDoS attack!
Like Zoink Scoop, they tried to take us off air. Rocky, they failed. But still, beyond that, we did it. We got over it. I got the whole thing hooked back up and everything. They can hashtag snort it because we ain't getting off air. Kids, we're still here and they're not taking us off. But beyond that, where was I, Matthew? Where was I? I was at
We were talking about that hot dog man's mom.
Yeah. Okay. So to get back what I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, we're not going to make fun of someone just because they're such an insufferable prick that both their real parents and their adopted parents want absolutely nothing to do with them. We're not going to make fun of that. Just wanted y'all to know that though. But beyond that, you're right. That's it. You're right, made in Canada. But still, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running because folks like y'all and you, made in Canada, make this chat funny. You don't make it possible, but you make it funny as hell, made in Canada. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And also, thank you, Margaret Hemsley, for sharing that little factoid with us, because I guess the zebra really is the origin of the razzle dazzle. But with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And the next one goes to CK Bold, who says, take a live chat question in my honor. So we shall. And it goes to Old Buzzard, who says, did you see the video of the Jekyll or the Jekyll or something like that drone from Britain designed in Turkey?
I think I did actually. Let me type it in. Jackal drone. Yes, I did. We actually showed this a long time ago. So just to clarify, this thing came out on April 19th of 2023. We showed it all the way back then, actually. And let me show you what it was, because I think many of y'all will remember it when we show it. It was the little drone with the Marlet ATGMs mounted inside of it.
Oh.
You remember it?
Yes, the drone on the chain. They had it chained down.
Yeah, they had that thing chained down like it was on a leash, like it was like an angry pit bull or something that was going, but still, it is an ATGM firing drone, which is really cool. And we have seen and talked about this thing a long time ago. Actually, well, truly, it was almost a year ago at this point. So we have heard about it, we have talked about it, and it has a lot of promise. And hopefully, we'll see these things in real life, in real practice, sometime in the future, because they will really be a big game changer in how drones in the ATGM role are used. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for sponsoring that live chat, because that was a really good one.
Indeed. And the next one goes to Dean London, who puts in a 5 and says, loving HD2. They said liberty and democracy, LSA, and love Ukraine, and give one to the chat.
And you know it, liberty and managed democracy, my boy, my great, wonderful boy, but my beautiful boy. But still, beyond that, I guess you may be making a play on Helldivers 2, which has been taking the world by storm. I play it as well. It's a really fun game. But, you know, it is just a fun game. One thing, though, that some people are a little too ignorant to catch on, that play the game, and you know who I'm talking about, Matthew, and I've kind of told you about this in the background, is that the whole managed democracy and liberty thing in the game isn't real. Because you're fighting for a, almost like a, best way to explain it is like a authoritarian dictatorship. And so the whole managed democracy thing is kind of like, you know, like what the Soviet Union would tell their public. But beyond that,
I think Hot Dog Man knows who he's fighting for. I think he's actually proud of it.
Aw, man, it really gets me going. It really gets the rocks.
Fight for that communism. You gotta love that communism. I'm telling you, it just lines up perfectly with my hot dog ideals.
I'd be honest with you, the guy is so lazy, he probably hasn't even read the lore to know that, because if you read the lore, you immediately know that about it. Because, you know, guy's not really that there, you know, like we found that out last night. But beyond that, I would have to say, thank you so much for the support, and thank you for referencing Helldivers 2, because it really is a good game. I really do like it, all jokes aside, and all hot dogs aside. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
In that live chat goes to AFK Plan, who says, have you heard anything more about Moldova considering rejoining with Romania due to the Transnistria situation?
I have not heard about that at all. So I'd actually have to sadly declare ignorance on that and do a little bit more looking and research. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Bruce Lee, who puts in a 5 and says, here's 5 for when you take 5. Take a chat question, LSA.
Man, I like that. I like that, Bruce Lee. Here's 5 for when you take 5. I like that. Really good. Thank you for the support. And we will make sure to get a live chat. Matthew, what do we got?
And that live chat question is going to go to Craig Alex, who says, do you think Russia will try and annex other countries' territory?
Yes, they're already trying for Moldova, and I think they'll even try for maybe the Baltics as well, or Belarus. I feel like they're eventually going to try and envelop Belarus back into Russia, because in reality, if there's any nation in the entirety of Europe right now that really does not have any kind of historical existence beyond the past 30 years, it would be Belarus. Like, no lie. There's really no special culture in Belarus. They're literally just Russians. Like, Belarus is actually just Russian people living in a smaller Russia. Belarus's name literally just means white Russia in Russian. Like, I don't even get what the point of the country is. It just doesn't even historically exist. It is a modern day creation. Ukraine exists, however. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania all existed in different forms in the past, culturally and historically. Poland did. You know, everything down in Central Europe and the Balkans did at different points in time. They all have like a cultural founding and roots. But Belarus literally just doesn't. It's actually just Russian people. Like, if anything could be absorbed into Russia without a real threat being made because it's a different cultural group that's going to be oppressed by the Russians, it would be them, because they're just Russians. There's nothing different about them from normal Russians. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well, because if it's going to be anyone next, I have a feeling it will be Belarus, although they're friendly with the Russians. But thank you once again for support. I hope that does address that well. We are on to the next one.
And also, I saw some folks mentioning that that UFO that was seen on the camera earlier today and on the battlefield in Ukraine. I'm not really sure what to make of that. Like I said that during our short war video earlier today, It looked like it could maybe be some kind of glitch in the camera, which seems to be what DJI thinks it was. But at the same time, though, they zoomed in on it and it got bigger. So if it was a glitch, it seems like maybe it would have stayed stationary on the screen and not enlarged when they zoomed in. But I don't really know, to be honest with you, but it looked a little bit odd. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not the type person that thinks, oh, there's like aliens like on the battlefield and stuff like that. But, maybe it could be something like that. I'm really like cautious around this like topic. I don't want to sound like a nut at the same time, but that's kind of weird. Like it could be maybe some type of drone that the Americans have, that we have, that maybe we've not told anyone about or something like that. But you never know. But Enforcer, what's your hunch?
I would have to say, you know what I think about it, Andy. I mean, it's probably just nothing, really, in my opinion. I mean, I don't want to, what happened? I was in the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping. But, I'd have to be honest. I don't really think it's much anything being completely serious. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
They're probably just showing up to watch, probably replay, like maybe if it's a time travel or something. They're coming back to see the end of everything, but hopefully not. But next ones go to.
Actually, Matthew, they're coming back. Correction, excuse you. They're coming back to watch our show. It's like live. They're like, wow, we're here live. Yeah, exactly. They're not.
They wanted to make an appearance on the Enforcer videos. That's what they did.
They wanted our autograph, which I've been working on so hard, by the way. Y'all, like Matthew can tell you, I actually sat here all day. Well, not all day, but like for at least 2 hours today. Just writing my signature over and over and over, trying to get it down so that way when we get the flags, we start signing them, y'all have really good signatures on them instead of absolute dog doo-doo, because I don't want y'all to have
absolutely wasting the hell out of all my gold pen ink that is bought for the flags. Just emptying the whole pen, man.
But it's for good use, man, because I'm over here right now while you're talking, working on this on the back of an envelope, trying to make sure that it looks good, because I'm paranoid about sending out a bad-looking autograph. Like, I would feel terrible if we did that. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next ones go to Little Bear and also Roxanne Queenville, who put in a $5 donation and do not leave comments. But thank you very much, Little Bear and Roxanne, for that support. We appreciate it very much. And we also have a 5 from Neil Vizanot, who says, good night, LSA, and love y'all and keep the fight going. And good night to you, Neil. I have a feeling you've already gotten off by now, but good night.
And good night to you, Neil Vizanot. Legend of the channel, true hero of the Lee Spring Army, and I got to thank you once again for being here with us tonight, and I hope you have a good night's sleep, Neil, and I thank you once again for being here with us tonight and enjoying this channel and helping us to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Hoodoo Texas, once again, who puts in the 5. And says, Sweden seems very serious about Gripens for Ukraine by early 2025 now, and training and infrastructure is needed.
And I would agree, training and infrastructure is always needed when introducing new aircraft to an air force, or any aircraft, even if they're in a currently existing airframe. There's a lot of training and logistics, really facilities that have to be ironed out before those aircraft even arrive. And hopefully Sweden can work on providing those to Ukrainians before they plan on getting those Gripens there. Because if they don't, yeah, the Gripens will be ready to be delivered by early 2025, but there's going to be no way to get them there and actually use them. And then they'll be delayed even further because they'll have to get all the facilities ready for those aircraft. And so with that, I completely agree with that assessment 100%. And thank you once again for throwing that in, because that's a very astute observation. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Death for Real, who puts in a 5 and says, first, support, so expect me around sometimes. He says, by the way, if y'all had to choose, excluding American tanks and whatnot, what would you choose? And, oh, man, I gotta tell you what, I like that little added part there you added in. Gotta always give a shout out to the hot dog salesman of the world and the union. But I would say, personally, me, for the tanks that are not American tanks, I would say the German Leopard. That's a beautiful, well-designed tank. That design is probably the top for me. That's as good as it gets for a tank design. The new Abrams X looks cool, but I think the Leopard beats it out. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to be honest. I really like the Challenger 2 from the United Kingdom. I think it's a really beautiful tank. It's a big tank. It's a very comfortable tank. It's luxurious. Only 2 of them have been ever destroyed, and both of them were destroyed by, well, actually 3 of them have been destroyed. 2 of them were destroyed by friendly fire. 1 of them ended up, unfortunately, being destroyed by a lucky artillery hit in Ukraine. Overall, it is a really good main battle tank. It also has a great sounding engine, a very good and accurate gun. It's the only tank in the Western world at this point that can actually use HESH shells efficiently. It also has a tea kettle built in inside. Overall, it's just a really cool tank, and I think it looks good to boot. So I would say that if it was not the M1 Abrams variant of tank, it would be the Challenger 2 in my opinion. And then after that, it would be the Leopard 2, and then it'd be the Leclerc from France. But really, the Leopard 2 and the Leclerc, to me, are kind of all one and the same. They don't look the same, and they don't operate the same at all, but they're kind of on the same level in my mind. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well indeed. And thank you once again for support and asking a really good question. And of course, before we move on, aw, man, my little stream I tried to do, the brigade, didn't really work out. Aw, man, so I gave up tonight.
Oh man.
Aw, man.
Oh man. Get back. Get back.
Aw, man. But beyond that, we are on.
Man, stop moaning in the mic. Man, get back.
Ooh, Romania. Oh,
Yuck.
yuck. Yuck. Oh, man. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Butchie777, who throws in a $5 donation and says, you mentioned Westward Ho last night. And we also mentioned him tonight as well. We just got done talking about him. He said, it's actually a lovely little seaside town in the UK and spent many a summer day there in Slava, Ukraine.
You know what,
I think we might have seen that town when we went over there a few years back. We might have seen that somewhere. I can't recall where it was, though, in the country.
Here it is. It's a Westward. Hey, wait a minute. Yeah, we did.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah, it's right
that.
here. Dude, I remember.
Yeah, we did pass by
Yeah.
that. I remember we drove by in the car and we were making fun of it. Talking about, well, look at that town called Westward Ho.
Yeah, and then we drove down here to Polseth way back then, and we stayed at, like, this place right here. Yeah,
St. Moritz, Cornwall.
Yeah, it was literally this building. Remember, there was that nice little garden in the back, and then the pool,
yeah.
And then way right over here, there was a lighthouse somewhere over here that you could see. It'd be this one, my boy.
I remember they didn't have any air conditioning in this place over there in that hotel, and also we had been in the car for like 12 hours or something straight, and everybody was done and cooked. And we didn't even get to go enjoy the beach or anything. Like we just walked down the street, I think, and went to a restaurant, and then went back to sleep with the hot air going in the room.
So we walked down here to the oyster catcher right here, this restaurant. And we ate.
Oh yeah.
And you could look down the street because the street went down towards the beach at this point, and you could see from about right here the beach, the whole beach, and you could also look out into the sea. This was a beautiful little town that we went to. And we're about to get to Westward Ho, but we have to share with you all the story of why we even know about it. But still, this little hotel, Matthew, remember the morning that we woke up after we went there, and it was all foggy and stuff because it was early in the morning. You couldn't literally see even the garden behind this hotel thing. And then as it a few hours passed, the fog began to clear, and we finally saw the unbelievable view that hotel had over towards the lighthouse on the other side of this bay.
Oh yeah, I remember that. This whole like beach area, the Cornwall area of Britain, was super beautiful along the coast. Like the most beautiful scenery I've ever seen anywhere. Very like picturesque. But also like I didn't know it before, but that place where we stayed was like literally like the Ritz-Carlton of like the beach area or something like that. Because all you saw was like these really nice like Land Rover like old trucks running around that were like rare, or at least I think they're rare, but probably not in Britain. But it was like the like ritzy beach area or something. I didn't even know that when we stopped there, but just a very nice place.
Yeah, and also another thing that was wild is that my mom had a really bad headache while we were here, and she was like, "Oh man, I need to go get like some medicine." And so we found out that the only pharmacy, or as they call it, a chemist, I believe, in this part of the country. No, that's north. I think they still call it the pharmacist in this area. But the only one was in Padstow, so you had to drive to Padstow from Polseth to get there, and that doesn't look that far. I mean, like if you measure the distance from the hotel to Padstow, it is only 2.2 miles away from each other. But we found out that the damn drive was 4 hours long because there's no bridge across this mouth of this river here. And so you'd have to drive all the way down to Wadebridge and then around. And for some reason, it said it would take 4 hours. So then we were like, you know what, forget it. We're not going there. So then she just battled out the headache. But beyond that, getting back up to Westward Ho, because we drove right past this on our way down there. This is cool looking. Let's take a look. What does this place look like? All right.
Oh, look, it's a hot dog man. Oh, whoops.
Oh, Ferndale House. Yep, that's where he'd be.
Oh.
That's where he'd be. Oh no. But let's get closer to the beach. Let's see what it looks like out here. Peter, the beach is here. Oh, dude, they got like the old like British like deal going on here, and then there's the beach. It's like a rock beach. That's really cool.
Also, GW North says Cornwall is radioactive. The rocks are radioactive. Very high background radiation in the area. Like, he's being serious about that. I've never heard that, though.
Wait a minute. We got to go pull that up. Is Cornwall radioactive?
I didn't get near the rocks, but I did in Mexico, and I cut my leg on a rock in Mexico, so that kind of sucked. But luckily, I didn't do that in Cornwall.
Much of Cornwall is designated as a radon-affected area. This means that at least 1% of the domestic properties have a radon level at or above the action level of 200 becquerels per cubic meter. Well, I be damned.
Radon gas?
Yeah, radon gas.
Wasn't that in like homes and stuff? That's not like in the open air, is it?
No. It leaks into homes from the ground.
Well, damn, that's a bad problem to have. How the hell do you fix that?
I have no idea, but that is really something to know. So apparently, the entire nation, the entire county of Cornwall in the UK, their anthem is "Radioactive" by Imagine Dragons. Who would have ever known? But beyond that, that is really cool that you were that you hung out at Westward Ho, Butchie 777, because we actually drove right by this place, and I think the closest we got was the A39 right outside of it, because I remember. Oh my God! Wait a minute. Hang on. We stopped at an Aldi somewhere around here, Matt. Do you remember that? It was a town near Westward Ho. I think it may have been Barnstable or Barnstable. Maybe this was the place. Because there was a
yeah, wait a minute. Click on that Tesco. Click on it. Click on it right there.
It's not this one, because we stopped at an Aldi, not a Tesco.
No, it was a Tesco.
No, it wasn't. Do you remember this is the first time we went
wait,
Aldi?
No, it was the British Walmart.
Wait.
What's that called?
Wait. Is it over here? Wait a minute. I think the Aldi's over here. Nope.
No, it's not Aldi. It's the British Walmart. It's what's that? What's the name of the British Walmart?
Asda. It's Asda.
Aldi.
Yeah.
Asda's.
Yeah. Let's see. Wait a minute. Is there an? Let's just type in Asda. Wait a minute. Is this it? This is it. That's it right there. That's the one we went in.
Yep.
Yeah. And so we went in here, and we went into this. Wait, that says it's a. All right, hang on. Let me get down to the parking lot here. We gotta check this visually. That is the one. Yeah, we pulled up into this parking lot right here, and we went into that Asda, and we got some sandwiches and stuff, and we went to the restroom, and then we got right back on the road, and that was the closest we got, Butchie 777, to actually getting out in Westward Ho, which was like 2 miles away from there. So that is actually insane that we kind of crossed paths years ago. And the last time we went to the UK, in case anyone was wondering, was 2019, I think, or 2018, one or the other, because we have not been on a vacation really ever since then. So for like 4 or 5 years or so. But beyond, also just to date the vacation, the last time we went to the UK, the Class 43s in the Great Western Railway had just been phased out and replaced with the Class 800s. So maybe that, gives you all a really good timetable of when we were over there the last time. But beyond that, that is so cool, and I thank you so much for the support, Butchie 777. I haven't spent many summer days at Westward Ho, but I did spend 1 or 2 summer days all the way down at Polseth in Cornwall. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again. And also, a quick clarification, if I am correct, I believe that Westward Ho is in Devon County in the UK and not in Cornwall, because I believe Cornwall starts around the A388 and then goes west. So I believe this entire area is Devon, if I'm correct, but correct me if I'm wrong. But I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for support, Butchie 777, and so cool to know that our paths crossed in some way. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to CNG Delabelle, who puts in a 5 and says, Bradley is a light tank according to the definition of light tank. Prove me wrong, Americans. Slava Ukraine.
Man,
Suka.
had to call us out. Its definition.
I think he called us a Suka. I think he called us a bitch.
You calling me out? But still,
I think he did. I don't think that was a nice one.
Well, thank you for the support, nevertheless. But let's see here. Also, a light tank is a tank variant initially designed for rapid movements in and out of combat to outmaneuver heavier tanks. It is smaller in size with thinner armor and a less powerful main gun, tailored for better tactical mobility and ease of transport and logistics. They are primarily employed in screening, armored reconnaissance, skirmishing, artillery observation, and supplementing landing operations in a fire support role of expeditionary forces, where larger, heavier tanks are unavailable or have difficulties operating safely or efficiently. So yeah, I mean, I guess it would fall under the definition of a light tank. But this is what most people think of when they think of a light tank, if the picture loads. I don't know what's up with the pictures not loading. Here we go, finally. This is an M24 Chaffee, which was the American light tank, well, one of the more modern American light tanks in World War II. Really cool. Really itty-bitty.
That is cool.
Itty-bitty. And I like these things. I think they're really neat because, funnily enough, this little tiny tank here had the same firepower as an M4 Sherman. It had the same gun, which is really a neat fact about this thing. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support, CNG, the label, and putting that in all caps and calling us a bitch. But beyond that, thank you once again. I hope that does address that well, because apparently you would most possibly be right. But it is an infantry fighting vehicle because it also adds to the fact that it can carry infantry, which is something that a light tank cannot do. So it then gets modified into being an IFV. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Made in Canada 182. Put in that absolute zinger on Hot Dog Man's mom earlier today. You put in a 5 and said, if there isn't already, have you considered somewhere where we can post selfies with all of our merch we buy from the store? And amazing stream again, Enforcers.
And I have an idea, Made in Canada. You could send us some DMs on the Twitter. So that way we can compile them all and we can put them on the merch store. Like maybe in a separate section where it's like, wouldn't that be cool, Matthew, if we had like LSA member section on the merch store where it was just like a compilation of pictures of everyone wearing their merch, like their shirts or flying the flags or something like that?
That would be pretty neat. I would say put them on Twitter, but then Hot Dog Man's gang and union would probably harass the hell out of everyone and stalk them down to where they live and their home address and all that stuff. We wouldn't want that for the viewers. There are crazy people on the internet, after all. This is where they like to go and hide, is the internet. So wouldn't want to expose y'all to that. But we could do something like you're mentioning, Enforcer.
Yeah, we could. We could do something like that. I'd really like to. I would like to indeed. But I would, of course, advise you all to make sure not to do anything that really gives away your exact location. I mean, saying your city is one thing, but saying like where you are or putting up a picture of something like the inside of your house or anything like that, I wouldn't advise that, because we do have a gang of sick, mentally deranged psychos that obsess over us and hate us every day of their lives, and that extends sometimes to viewers themselves. If they make themselves an easy target, like, you know, figuring out where they live and stuff. So I would just make sure to not do something like that. You know, like you can send the pictures to us, and then we'll probably vet them in case there's like an OPSEC thing where it kind of gives away where y'all might live, and then kind of like filter those pictures out. So that way we can make sure to keep all of y'all safe, but also at the same time let y'all be proud of all of your Lee Spring Army merch, which will be really cool to see. But thank you so much for enjoying the stream, Made in Canada, and thank you for putting that out there. Thank you so much for enjoying the stream, and thank you for letting us all know that Hot Dog Man, he does sound like a zebra, and so does his mother. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Badger Bro once again. He puts in the 5 and says, Enforcers, what happened to the Lend-Lease approved for Ukraine?
I don't know. It was talked about, but I've never seen it actually followed through with. So I don't really know what happened to it. I guess it exists, but it never is being used, somehow, some way. But still, with that, thank you for the support. I hope that does address that. Well, it didn't address that well, but I thank you for the support nonetheless, Badger Bro. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jason Curlin, who puts in a 5 and says, I heard USA could give away rimming weapons supply, but it would cost $4 billion.
I don't know what rimming weapons are, unfortunately. But beyond that, we could give away loads of weapons, in all honesty. I mean, the Marine Corps retired hundreds of M1A1 Abrams recently, and is now a tankless armed force. There are no tanks within the Marine Corps at the moment, due to their new doctrine and how they're planning to fight and everything. Which I don't think is smart, but, you know, that's up to the Marines. But beyond that, there's plenty of stuff we could give Ukraine if we wanted to that could end up living a much better second life in another country like Ukraine. But with that, I hope that does address that well, because there is plenty of stuff that we can give away. It's just a matter of deciding to give it to them, which would be a good thing to do. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running Jason Curling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Tom Xman, who puts in a 5 and says it's $5 Wednesday. He says everyone give 5. In the words of Tom.
Oh, Tom. And I got to thank you so much once again, Tom, for the support and throwing in a 5. Everyone doesn't have to give a 5. Everyone doesn't have to give a 5 a Tom. It's only the people who want to. I want to make sure that everyone knows that the channel is free to watch. If you enjoy, you enjoy. If you like to support, you can. But you don't have to. There's nothing forcing anyone to. And I never want anyone to feel obligated to support the channel either. It's entirely something done just on the deep appreciation and love that y'all have for the channel. If y'all want to help it to keep running, y'all support. And if you don't, you just watch. And just hit that like button and everything. And that makes us happy in its own right. But still, thank you so much for the kindness, Tom, and wanting to see the channel prosper incredibly well support-wise, but I never want to make people feel like they're obligated. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, and it does mean a lot. And with that, I think we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Squamous Tarkus, who put in a 2. And thank you very much, Squamous, for that support. And we also have a 2 from Badger Bro, who says, I've been to Gulf State Park, Alabama. Very nice place. And it is pretty nice down there. I must say, it's not quite on the level of Florida beaches, but it is nice. But Enforcer, what say you?
And look at that. Gulf State Park. Isn't that nice? Right near Gulf Shores. Right here. There's Gulf Shores. Right there.
Right there.
And I remember Gulf Shores, dagnabbit. I'll tell y'all why. One of the last things I did, reenacting-wise, was in this area around Gulf Shores. It was really cool, but it was one of the last things I did before this channel actually started, and then I got busy, and I haven't been able to reenact since. The last time I reenacted was, almost 2 years ago. Well, in a couple of months, it'll be exactly 2 years ago. But that is crazy to think about, because I used to have so much fun doing that. Wish I could do it, but that time will probably never come around again, at least for the next year or two, or maybe several. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you for letting us know, Badger Brother. You've been in Alabama, and I'm glad that you liked it. Because I like it here. I like it. But still, thank you once again. I hope that does address that well. And it's time for us, I think, to move on into them live chats.
It is time to move into our live chats, and we have a question from David Bailey, who says, when are the F-16s supposed to arrive? Any word?
Well, they're supposed to arrive by midsummer, but they just keep on pushing back that timetable till we don't know. So right now it's midsummer, but you just never know. They could send it whenever they want. It could be later than that, but at least by a minimum, it's going to be the early summer. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we're on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Koljack. He says, didn't Ukraine say they would help fight against Transnistria if they attacked Moldova back on the first year of the war?
They did, actually, and that's something that we're kind of looking towards and seeing if Ukraine would do that if anything does kick off there. But yes, the simple answer to that is that they did promise that, but we don't know if they're going to follow through on that. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And we have a question from Matt, who says, how does Russia plan on getting equipment to Moldova when there's no real safe way to do so?
Well, the best way that they could plan is to try and fly it in, but the chances of them actually being able to fly it in would probably be pretty slim, because they most likely get shot down by Ukrainian air defense near Odessa if they tried, or even Mykolaiv or Kherson, or Kryvyi Rih. I mean, hell, they get shot down anywhere they'd want to go. So, in all honesty, there's no way for them to get anything into Moldova. They'd really just have to operate with what they already have in there, which isn't much. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a question from Justice Ryan, who says, how much longer can Ukraine hold out without those shells? Zelensky keeps saying it's critical. And how will Congress come up with those billions in time? And thank you.
Ukraine will hold out forever. And I believe that comment there is being made because a certain so-and-so, certain sad loser who just runs YouTube just to make a nice buck and to get a couple of views, tried to say something today to rack up some viewership. That's the whole reason why you're most likely asking that question. Ukraine can survive without ammunition from the United States. they will continue on to fight this war and eventually probably end up in a draw at the worst case scenario, or end up with a victory in the best case scenario. It's just a matter of how much support can they get and how long will it take for them to eventually reach that goal. That's really what we're looking at. So without American support for shells, this war will probably drag on another year or two beyond the minimum threshold. If they get all of the shells that they want from America, it'll probably end in the next year or two, from what we're assuming. So going off of that, I would have to say that hopefully Congress can figure out a way. I can't really explain how, because that would become a very political answer, but hopefully they can find a way to overcome their differences and approve the support and get it into Ukraine, because that would be absolutely incredible, and it would help Ukraine to end this war a lot quicker and blast the Russian military around a lot faster and more effectively as well. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this is actually the second last question of the night, because it's all we have left. We have this one from Leonce Pierre, who says, what are the chances that these are cheap Chinese knockoff Starlinks?
The chances are actually a little low, because they are branded directly as Starlinks without any kind of a knockoff branding to them. So they look like genuine articles to me, and they might actually be real Starlinks. I think there certainly needs to be, sorry, I just smacked my teeth together there. You might have heard me grit my teeth. But I think there really does need to be an official investigation launched into that, because Starlink isn't just any communication system. It's one of the newer and more revolutionary kinds in how it operates, and this is a national security concern as far as communications work. So if those are making it into the hands of the Russians, we need to stop that immediately. And if that was being approved at a higher level of Starlink management, say the CEO or the owner of Starlink, sanctions need to be possibly thought about for Starlink and the person who owns or is the CEO of Starlink, considering that what they're doing is directly in contradiction to U.S. strategic interests and concerns of the United States. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Dragon, who says, would you say Macron's recent statement about not ruling out French ground forces in Ukraine is more of a rhetorical move to scare Putin rather than actually considering it?
Probably more of a rhetorical move, because the French would really have to weigh in on the Americans kind of making that decision, along with the British and the Germans kind of teaming up with them. So I would have to say it's more of a rhetorical thing right now, because the majority isn't in favor of sending troops into Ukraine. So going off of that, I hope that does answer that question quite well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank every single one of y'all so much once again for watching tonight. It has been an absolute honor being able to run this stream for every single one of y'all. At the peak tonight, there were 5.1 thousand people who were watching, and nearly 30,000 people who watched the stream before it ended. We are entirely honored to know that we were able to cover the news for each and every single one of y'all. If we could do this every single day until the end of time, we would, and hopefully we will. Well, not about the war in Ukraine, but, you know, hopefully be able to get to talk to all of y'all every night about all the big things going on in the world. But with that, if you're new to the channel and you did enjoy it, please make sure to subscribe, make sure to like, and make sure to comment, because we are always here every single day of the week except for Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Least Spring Army. The Least Spring Army will never die.
And good night to you all, and we'll see you all tomorrow night. Thank you all for a fun stream tonight, and we'll see you all in the next one. And Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, and good night.
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.